like that. I beat you in, crank up back to back. Oh, oh, just like that. I see a dub in my future stats. Oh, I know a place you can go. The doghouse outside my massive abode. It's lovely, it's cushy, and sometimes it's cold. Now sit and watch me get this gold. Oh, I just want it all. I just want it all. I'm gon' bounce. I'm gon' bounce back. Said you want it all, but you want it all. Said you want it all. I'm bounce back. Said you want it all, but you want it all. I can have it all if you knock me down. I'll go to the floor. I
we moving up, we on fire. Unstoppable, we never stop, we feel higher. Look at our squad, we the best, far better than all of the rest. Unstoppable, we moving up, we on fire. Never give up, never give in, stronger we tough, thick in the skin. This is our game, so let it begin. This is our team, get ready to win, ready to run, we're ready to play, ready to tumble, we ain't afraid. Enemies high, enemies great, come on the squad, I just wanna wait.
It's Championship Sunday, and that could mean only one thing. It's time to find the active champions some new owners. Welcome to the final day of the FNCS Major 2 Grand Finals. Welcome to Championship Sunday. If you missed yesterday, you definitely missed out. We had it all, guys. Savage and Truly winning a VR, Sky and Scroll coming back, Shark and Teeny gearing up to having a very dramatic resurgence on day 2, I think. Takata, what was your favorite moment?
Probably the moment that we're going to see that you just mentioned today when Shark and Teeny end up going from 5th to 1st.
Yeah, definitely going to happen, right, Mini Miner?
Yeah, I hope so. I'm going to say my favorite moment, though, is Mr. Savage win game number 1. Like, what a start to the weekend. Hopefully today is going to be just as exciting as well.
Yes, so let's take a look at the leaderboard and remind ourselves of what went on yesterday. We're going to talk about the top 5 juries in the standings, starting with Sky and Scroll, because they are proving the doubters wrong right now, Takata. If anything, their ability to put on a united front has looked more consistent than ever before.
Yeah, this is the Sky and Scroll we're used to seeing. Absolute elite consistency. There was some haters, some doubters saying, oh, they switched up their drop spot from Boulevard. Their mid game isn't going to work as well. I don't know what's going to happen. But Sky and Scroll were actually leading the lobby with the most AR damage throughout the whole day. You can see almost 5,000 damage. And second place, Mini, is 3,000 damage. That's almost a 2,000 damage difference. What's also interesting is out of their 26 eliminations they got yesterday, 20 of them were during the end game.
Yeah, these guys really came alive here in the major finals. As you mentioned, they weren't looking that great actually coming up to the major finals. It wasn't quite clicking for them, but everything is coming together right at the very perfect moment. And I mean, these guys yesterday just performed so well. They had a few different adaptations to their strategy as well. It wasn't so concrete like we saw last season as well. And could this be the first time since 2021 that a team has won 2 FNCS major titles on EU in the same year? And these guys could have gone back to back if Summit had gone a little bit differently as well. This could have been the dominance that we haven't really seen on EU for so long. And I want to mention as well that these guys are actually practicing off-spawn fights all night last night. So maybe they're potentially preparing for an off-spawn contest from someone today.
Well, hopefully they got some sleep because they're going to need all their energy to win this one. Let's bring up the leaderboard again because I don't think going into yesterday's games that we expected Cringe and Twy to be quite this strong. We knew that they could play, but they had a difficult off-spawn situation, and yet they're making it look so simple, and they're looking especially lethal in their endgames, Takata.
Hey, I love it. They're playing out of their minds. They made it top 5 4 out of the 6 games yesterday. And not only does Twy have the most eliminations out of anyone in the lobby from day 1, but they're also leading in shotgun damage, have the least storm damage out of anyone in the top 8, despite having kind of a difficult off-spawn situation to navigate, like you mentioned, Frankie. But Mini, they had a bit of a weird last match yesterday in Storm, right?
Yeah, that last game was really tough for them. They lost a lot of that damage early on. Of course, with that net surge, you need to try and recoup some of that damage as well. They were sort of trying to go into loads of different areas to try and reclaim some of that. However, remember that 6th zone was just all the way, or the 6th game zone was all the way down towards the southwest, and it was really difficult for them to catch up. They ended up going down to the Storm in that game today, yesterday as well. So that's the big question for me now going into today, as you can see sort of what happened to them in their last game on the screen. That's the big question for me now, though. It's like, how are they going to respond? They haven't been in this situation before. Yesterday, I spoke about Twy not quite turning up when it comes to the grand finals to his ability. Now, how can they dust themselves off? How can they come back today after what ended yesterday in not great fashion?
But I think they're just going to try and remember the momentum that drove them in the first few games. Doing it for the UK, those boys. Let's bring back up the leaderboard, because in third place are Harry and Cammy. And it's an FNCS Grand Finals. We're always going to be talking about Cammy, but thanks to some incredible endgame moments from Hari, this team is a real contender for the Axe of Champions if they can pull off some big games today, Mini Miner.
Yeah, I think so. And I think surprisingly, they surprised a lot of people, which is kind of odd because you talk about Cammy particularly as a sort of player that's a very experienced player in the region. And he always seems to come up with some interesting sort of off-spawn strategies and some strategies in general. And something that I noticed yesterday was even just little things like using these 7 sliders to speed up his loop path at the beginning of the game. This, of course, is not brand new. This is not new tech that nobody else has done before. But he's always trying to think ahead and use all of those different items to his advantage, which I was really impressed with yesterday. And then, of course, Hari as well. What a performance from Hari individually. He just absolutely popped off so many eliminations. And I think Takata, in general, the way that this duo played, they sort of played their roles perfectly well. The dynamic between them was really good.
Exactly, and we're actually going to see the comparison here. So you can see Hari is doing an amazing job of getting those eliminations, doing the damage, but Cammy is putting him in that position to actually get them. It's been an absolute masterclass from these two, and I mean, it showed with how high up they are on the leaderboard in third place. So I'm excited to see if they can continue that trend today.
It's also worth noting that these guys haven't qualified for the global championships yet, so they have extra motivation to have a fantastic day too. But judging by the way they played yesterday, we're going to be seeing them in Antwerp. Hopefully, I'm not going to jinx anyone here. Now, looking at 5th on the leaderboard, it's Shark and Teeny. And yes, I know we're disappointed by some of their gameplay yesterday, but if you think back to Major 1, Takata, this is actually improvement on their day 1 performance in a major.
Yeah, it is, but for some reason, it still feels like they weren't living up to the expectations that we had going into these major finals. But as you were mentioning, Frankie, they went from 21st place in last major to 5th in day 2. So 21st day 1 to 5th day 2, an insane comeback. And now today, they're already in 5th place after day 1. Issue is, Mini, they're 139 points behind the most consistent duo on EU, Sky and Scroll, in that 1st place spot right now.
Yeah, it wasn't a day to remember for these guys yesterday. They struggled in a lot of those early game fights. One of them was down in a couple of them as well. I think earlier on we saw Shark going down, then of course Teeny later on down the line in a few of the other games as well. So those off-spawn fights were just taking a little bit too long. They were setting themselves too far back. So in the 2 best games they actually had yesterday, they were sort of sat up in surge bases. And in those games, they had the most amount of spire rifle damage, which shows they're sort of playing a little bit further back. But you mentioned it here, Takata. Last major, they had an incredible comeback on day 2. 3rd on the day in day 2, 308 points, over double what they got in day 1, 2 VRs, loads more eliminations, and much better placement. So these guys, based on last major's performance, could be the day 2 team to look out for. And remember, that last game from yesterday was a victory royale, so expecting big things from these guys today.
Well, let's continue to reflect on yesterday's games by getting into the zones with Taco and Levin.
Thank you very much, Frankie. Look, we have to talk about it. It's always going to be a big talking point. Who in day 1 just got a lot of zone luck, right? Whose performances are looking a bit Mickey right now? That's always going to be the question, Taco. Do you feel like anybody has benefited greatly from the zone tech?
Well, that's the thing, Levin, because a good portion of them you can see sort of trailing a little bit closer towards that north side of the map, but not super deep north aside from game 3. So maybe some teams that others would have anticipated to be a bit higher up on the leaderboards clearly struggling to still find their footing, but that's what day 2 is all about. You've had the night to review, you've had the night to practice even a little bit more so now it's time to put practice into action.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I'm definitely going to be looking at some of those, southern teams who maybe complained about the lack of zones and paying attention. If they do get the zones, whether or not they can match their level, that's always going to be what it's about. But enough from us. You can hear from us more later. We're going to send it back over to Frankie in the desk.
I can't wait to hear more from you guys. But also remember, if you're a pro, if you want to be a back-to-back champion, if you want to win a global championship, you got to be ready for anything. But are these duos going to be? Let's bring back up the leaderboard, because I drop Ngonzo. It feels like in the first half of yesterday's games, Takata, they were crushing everyone's dreams in the end game. But then what happened by the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, you look at their 4th place and you think, oh, that's great. The issue is they started the day with a 9th, 4th in their first matches, but they had a complete turn of events at the end of the day with a 44th, 27th, and 21st. I'm hoping they had some time to review their games, Mini, because, you know, they're going to have to fix some of those mistakes. But despite all this, iDrop still have the 2nd most eliminations in the lobby behind Twi. You can see they've been completely fragging out, and they are comfortably sitting in qualifying range to the Global Championships.
And you can see in a lot of their games right here, they're actually going down with so many builds. And this is something that I was looking at yesterday when I was sort of VOD reviewing them last night. And you could see all those builds, 123 builds on Gonzo right there when he went down, 102 here on iDrop. And you can see the zones in which they're actually going down in these endgames where things are maybe falling apart slightly for them. It's in the endgame. It's in those good positions that they're getting themselves in the game. And iDrop said it themselves. We're putting ourselves in really good spots here. We're actually finding success in that mid game and that off spawn. But we're just, especially in this latter half of the day, as you can see on this graphic, we're going down with so many materials in situations where they shouldn't be. So if they can put themselves in those positions again and then find more success, they should be a lot better today.
It'll be interesting to see if they can pick up a victory royale like our next duo did. The first victory royale of the day memorably went to Truly and Savage. But unfortunately, you can see they're 10th on the leaderboard right now. They're trying to qualify for the Global Championships, Takata. Are they in a good spot? What do they need to do?
It could be worse. With an electric start yesterday, winning game 1, I mean, social media was going crazy, saying, Grand's finished, we'll end it here. Savage won game 1. Unfortunately, Levin had to say something, and after that, they only made 1 top 10. But to be fair, when they did get top 10, Mini, it was a 4th place, and now it's kind of put them barely in qualifying range to the Global Championship.
Yeah, but that's exactly what these guys need to be doing. They need to be looking at that Global Championship qual as their goal, as their target for this weekend. I don't think they're going to be a team that's going to walk home with the axe of champions this weekend, but they can definitely get a positive result. Because if you look at their performances yesterday, yeah, they got that win, they got that 4th place, but the rest of the games were just a little bit mid and not great. So what it shows is because they're 10th on the leaderboard, all you need is 1 or 2 really solid games to put yourself in contention for qualifying to the Global Championships. So it kind of shows that the format here for these guys and the goal for today will not necessarily to be really uber consistent like some other teams we're talking about, just to have 1 or 2 of those big games that we know Mr. Savage can have.
We're going to be talking a lot about contention for the Global Championship today. So on page 2, you'll see we've got Velo and Zynox. We did have questions about whether they thrive in their first FNCS final. So what's the verdict so far, Takata?
That they are literally the cutoff qualifying to the Global Championship at 14th place. And I know 9 duos qualify to the Global Championship this major, but there's 5 already qualified duos above them. So 14th place is that cutoff, Mini.
Yeah, and a lot of my talking points yesterday going into the day was that these guys, if they are going to get contested, might struggle because they're not necessarily used to landing at Latte. But they got conned like 2 or 3 games yesterday and looked the real deal. They took out Winter and his teammate off spawn so many times. I think it was 2 or 3 times, just really, really looking strong. So that doesn't seem to be the concern for them. The concern was all those teams rotating in via a third party. And that, of course, then sets their game back. They lose a lot of that damage and have to go and heal and then have to go and find that damage elsewhere. Which yesterday, because of what we saw with the zones that the casters broke down, wasn't really that big of a deal for them because of those sort of north zones. But I think if they do get a few more of those south zones today and their game is set back from the beginning by all of those third parties rotating in, they might struggle a little bit more. So these guys will be hoping for more of those north zones.
Well, Nathan and Nebs, they're definitely going to need to do something different today because otherwise they risk their spot in Belgium. And I need to know if they can become diamonds. Are they going to thrive under the pressure, Takata?
I hope so. It was a bit of a back and forth yesterday, not knowing, are they going to be contested? Will they be on con? And the team that was originally going to fight them actually just landed on Thomas HD and Focus. But with Nebs and Nathan being in 16th, right outside qualifying range, they're going to have to step it up today.
Yeah, it wasn't an amazing day for them. I was VOD reviewing them last night as well, trying to look at exactly where things went wrong. And they did seem to have a few Storm Surge issues. They were rotating to different areas. They were trying lots of different things, rotating down to Sinister Strip, trying to fight down there, trying to base up next to their drop spot. And things weren't quite working. So I thought, let me just ask their coach. Let's just see what Harry had to say. So I sent him a message, and he basically was saying the same sort of thing. He was saying they were really struggling with Surge in their early games, which meant those later rotations in the 50-50 zones meant that they couldn't focus on those rotations. They had to focus on actually actually getting Surge. And Coach Harry, as Levin mentioned on the cast yesterday, likes his teams to think about the rotations at the forefront of their brain. So when their mind is elsewhere looking for Surge, they can't focus on those rotations. So what he said today was just making sure to get yourself in good opportunities to get early Storm Surge to then free up those rotations later on and hopefully not have to worry about it later on in the game.
And this game is about how you roll with the punches, how you deal with the random factors that are thrown your way, because it is entirely possible to be consistent no matter what in this game. And that's what we've seen from Sky and Scroll to Carter. Do you think they can stay at the #1 spot?
I actually want them to. From the devastating end that they had at Summit, they won Major 1. I want to see them win Major 2 as well.
Minnie?
Yeah, I think they can. I think they're a team that has really grown into this season and have sort of developed so much. The big question is going to be what are Sharkantini going to do today? Because if they have games like they did in that Game 6 yesterday, they could really disrupt the lobby like we saw in Heat. It's not going to be as easy for them as we saw in that situation, but I think they're realistically, even though they're 5th, are the team that are going to cause them the most problems today.
Well, no team can rest on their laurels today. There are spots on the line at the Global Championships and, of course, the Axe of Champions itself. Let's head over to Taco and Levin for game number 7.
Thank you very much, Frankie. Look, this is the time. There's no turning back now. We are on a one-way route to absolute cinema with what EU has shaping us for us right now, Taco.
And it's just ballistic to think that we're even in this position to begin with, because so much of, I think, expectations were just thrown out the window after yesterday's games. And I'm thinking it's more or less going to be a lot of the same here today, because these teams are ready to go, and so is Game 7.
With any first game of the day, the question always becomes who will be victorious off spawn. But the reason why here in Game 6 things become even more layered is because we have the context of that first day, right, Taco? We know who was contested yesterday and now who isn't going to be contested today. Cringe and Twy have obviously had an amazing day 1. They started off contested yesterday, and after just completely dominating Radion and Bimbo, are now looking to start day 2 off uncontested.
But at the same time, you can just never anticipate whether or not teams are actually going to stick true to actually leaving you alone. Because even if one duo decides to forfeit that presence, doesn't mean that another can't step up to the plate. And that's part of the problem that's involved with so many of our teams. A decent amount of paranoia bound to start taking place as the matches go on. And for Hari, Cammy, seems like disaster is definitely striking in the form of Kuski and Rick, who've decided to make their presence known at Collider Corridor Beta. And this is the worst possible position that they can find themselves in, because you want to get off to an immediate hot start, but instead one of our leading leaderboard teams already eliminated here in Game 7. And Rick and Kuski definitely making it a bit of a sour note.
That is disastrous for Cammy and Hari. I mean, it's a great thing, I guess you could argue, for Thomas and Focus. This is the team that was fighting Rick and Kuski all day yesterday. And more often than not, they won. I believe it was 5-0 on the day, and I think they left in one of the games, or they weren't there in one of the games. So Thomas and Focus were able to handle Rick and Kuski perfectly fine. Unfortunately for Cammy and Hari, they cannot say the same. It will have to be a Game 8 job for them. But maybe this change, Taco, is what Thomas and Focus need to be able to deliver a better day for all of their fans watching today.
We're not the only ones being thrown for a bit of a loop here. Some teams that are very familiarized with the fighting just continue to find themselves in these engagements. Lyrics and Maldives will take down Pixovsky. Seren forced to retreat, but whether or not the disengage is going to be immediately successful, only time will tell, because it seems like they're on a bit of a hunt here now. Scroll, adamant as ever though. Based up, Frosted Flats, very similar strategies. Don't expect much change here.
Yeah, these guys are gonna be Mr. Consistent. That's what they've been all year long. But I'm not gonna lie, I was gonna say I'm a bit concerned because I'm seeing names dropping in the feed that, you know, are quite concerning. I think I saw Chino take Nebs down, or Nathan, or one of the two. So I'm sure there's plenty going on all over the shop. Right now, Vico doing his best up against Hellfire. And thankfully, Malabuka comes in with the cleanup.
Hellfire, ever since yesterday, you know, you get those sparks and you just almost expect that the fire is definitely starting to get stoked there, but Demish, Darm, Sunken Shores, we knew that they'd be contested. But Deal and Ju, though, not necessarily the duo that you would have anticipated Demish and Darm to encounter so early on, but given the circumstances that Vidil and Ju were facing in yesterday's competition, Lev, knowing that they were in a triple contested position, just not really working in their favor, so not too surprised to see them try and stake a claim elsewhere, but Darm and Demish shutting that down rather quickly here in Game 7. Still, other teams looking to really start building up a little bit of momentum here. And a lot of company surrounding Kenti, Fruzy, Photosai Sato, Jewel, Tidy, several different teams, but who's gonna be the first to actually run into another Photosai and Sato? The Devious here camping out the Ascender. Waiting to see who's gonna try and take it first, but surely teams maybe suspecting the presence of other duos afoot.
Yeah, and ultimately, what we're looking at here is a lot of different teams who need a better day too. Photosai and Sato in particular, I think the biggest names in this current area we're looking at, they did not have a great day one at all, and currently the start to Game 7 is not looking comfy either. Sato running for his life. Fruzy and Kenti desperately trying to take it away from him and send him back to the lobby.
Good amount of teams all sorely missing points. Realistically, Fruzy and Kenti, they're definitely having to work for it a bit, though.
And I think the one thing you would say is obviously we know that Jewel and Tidy are here waiting in the wings, and they're the one team in this situation who actually is looking really good, right? Had a great day one, 7th place on the day, and looking to try and secure one of those Globals qualification spots. I mean, a good enough game here, maybe they are in a fighting chance for competing for the title, so need to be careful about how they approach this cleanup situation. Don't want to jump in it too willy-nilly, and Fruzy will walk right into the trap, exactly what they were looking for.
Sometimes it just helps to be uninvolved, because not only that, but even with Minority and Darkos now rolling up to what's just taken place, all that noise definitely bound to attract some third-party intervention, but Betty and Jewel, they weren't involved. They only got a cleanup stake. And so with that in mind, Minority Darkos, they realized this opportunity maybe might have slipped away here. There's no real openings for us to get involved still. Other teams called it. Nathan Nebs, they were involved in some action, and part of it to do so with Cringe, and that is a big shakeup already, because now Twy left to try and sort through the pressure. I know it's only Game 7, but that's still a very big blow to receive at the starting point of day 2.
Yeah, worst possible start you could have to the day under the circumstances, and it pains me more to see it be another UK team being the ones to get the job done. I think for Cringe and Twy, the analyst talked about it. Today becomes a massive test for these two young gentlemen who will be trying to show that they can hold on, that they can be a team that fights till the very end for championships. Scary and Sayaz, a team that obviously would have preferred to have maybe had a better day one, but still just on the outside of the top 10, and we know what these guys can do when given favorable scenarios.
Also likely just excited at the fact that they know, regardless of overall outcome in this finals, they've still already got their spots locked in for Belgium. So it does alleviate some of that mental tension that good amount of these other duos aren't necessarily in the same position. They have to stare that one down and really answer that question for themselves if they're going to be capable of overcoming the hurdles to ensure that they find themselves in a solid enough placement to make it through for that Globals later on this year. Shark and Teeny, though, again, at the very end of the day, we saw exactly what they could be capable of. The problem, though, is there is going to need to be some semblance of consistency involved here today, because we know that Sky, Scroll, Cringe Twy, they've got a bit of a head start after yesterday's competition. And for Sky and Scroll particularly, that's a duo that screams consistency.
And I think the great thing that works in Sharkantini's favor is, even with how bad of a day it sort of felt for them, they're still just in fifth, right? It's not impossible. A bad game from Sky and Scroll, which, to be fair, we know is rare, does leave room. And I think if there's any team in this lobby who we are expecting to be capable of a big game, it has to be them too.
Exciting to think about too, though, just knowing that Mr. Savage truly currently in contention, starting off today, sitting at around 10th on the leaderboard. And with the night to reevaluate their game plans, many called it out. Realistically, you only need to replicate at least one or two more of those solid performances if you are in a similar position to Savage and Truly. And with that in the back of their minds, it's about just trying to see things through for the most part, because they've got a clear strategy and they've been trying to follow it.
Yeah, and it was good to get the update there on Twy and Cringe back in the game. And so the journey back into this one continues for iDrop and Gonzo. Another team with a great start to this competition. 4th place after day 1. But unfortunately, this is a time where we have to remind people of the history of the iDrop. Of course, a player who has been around for so long in EU competitive, but a player who over the years we've seen him have great day 1 performances many a time. In fact, it was last year in trios when he was playing with Sky and Scroll, and they finished day 1 on 1st place and just couldn't quite materialize and hold on to that lead for the next day. He'll be hoping this time he can fight to get back into competition with Sky and Scroll. Dharm and Dimash, I think at day 1 that left a lot to be desired, Taco, but I think these guys are 2 of the best players when it comes to day 2 comebacks.
And they're already looking to remedy some of those day 1 issues that had came into the mix. Dharm, Dimash now just waiting to capitalize on their 4th elimination here. Hizix, again, sending them for a little bit of a runaround, but 2 different angles to approach from. Dimash, Dharm just steadily chipping away at the builds that separate them from Hizix directly. Still being a bit cautious here, though, because one well-placed shot could be a tie turner here. But for Hizix, unfortunately, Dharm and Dimash are more than willing to drag this one out. They're already sitting well above the surge threshold, but the elimination points for a piece, that's never anything to be overlooked, as now Dimash, Dharm still waiting to see when they can connect with their final shots in. But Hizix, that delay, he might have done just enough, posed enough of a defensive measure to actually stand tall up against the likes of Dharm and Dimash. It's a bit surprising seeing Solo hold their own against such a prevalent fighting Polish duo, but it does happen from time to time.
Yeah, and I think if we should add the context of one of the major blockers for Dharm and Dimash yesterday was being contested by Dandapuzo and Azat, and quite frankly, a surprise contest, right? They weren't expecting to have to be fighting against those guys, and even though they came out on top, did seem to ruffle their plan a bit. Swizzy and Pixie, this is the team I'm probably the most excited about outside of our top 2 right now, as far as day 2 expectations. I think they're definitely the type of team with the right setup who could fire their way into contention, fighting blow for blow against Sky and Scroll, Cringe and Twy.
Just something in the air sometimes when it comes to Swizzy and Pixie, where it just feels like they're due for that ultimate show out performance. And if Summit is anything to base it off of, those highlights that we did see from Swizzy and Pixie in that circumstance, they're definitely not done or anywhere close to it here in day 2.
Pixowski and Seren find themselves in a world of hurt down on Surge. They found a team to potentially deal some damage to, but instantly lose the trade, and Seren will go down. They're even further down on Surge. No, he's exposed, and that's just the worst scenario. He gets knocked, and he tries to hide from the duo that knock him, but then he gets shot in the back, and so he just bleeds even more Surge damage and just puts Pixowski in an even worse position.
And the real struggle starts to unfold here for Pixovsky, because what once seemed like a potential to maybe try and look for another reboot opportunity is now just being stifled entirely. Pix and Fire and just continuing to sort of echo Pixovsky, and yeah, that won't take much time for them to clean it up.
And that really hurts because this is a team that came into the competition in 9th, right? This is a team that's fighting for a global spot. A rough start to the day might just throw a spanner into the works for their global's hopes.
Now they'll just have to look and hope that potentially some of these other leaderboard teams that were ahead of them or just around their position also encounter a similar fate. But for Twy and Cringe, they've done a decent job at managing to put themselves into a position that could potentially draw them to have a little bit more surge here. They're going to need it, only 73 above currently, and they know that ever since that early hiccup in Game 7, they've got to find some form of recovery if they intend on making a solid endgame run here. We did see a good showing out of them, though, in terms of how well they are able to play the low ground. And if they want to try and have that same representation of taking over that front side control, they're going to need to ensure that they're able to just focus on those rotates. Bits of sprays, but not netting anything huge just yet, but still enough to keep them over where they need to be.
Yeah, and they might just spot Izzy out here. Well, not Izzy, Nosif, sorry, is the player close to them. Izzy and Nosif currently split up, and Nosif is sat very close to their boxes. I don't know if they realize he is solo. Yeah, their attention being focused elsewhere right now, and rightfully so. These guys are just desperate for their damage. They can't afford to wait around too long. They have to look for the right opportunity, and opportunities will be present, truly. Up on elevation, spots all the players out, overdriving into the zone, and he'll be able to map their rotations and follow appropriately.
It's a great rotate right now out of Truly and Savage, and they've done an excellent job at just maintaining that same level of elevation despite Zone pulling a bit over the hillside. But Twy and Cringe, they needed something. They're gonna find it onto Venus. That's a nice little refresh, some extra loot to kind of secure for this next move. But on the opposite side of where all this congestion was taking place, that drone pan over shot, Sharktini, Sky Scroll, very close to one another and having the advantages of just being in that dead side position. So they're not going to get caught in the same level of traffic as some of these other teams. Granted, they might try and apply some pressure towards the other, but with Sharktini being the first on the move, Sky and Scroll trying to gauge whether or not they want to get a little bit further damage here. We're seeing them take a couple more pauses. We know that they're good on builds, we know that they're good for their materials, but they would definitely like a little bit more damage so they don't encounter any sort of surge struggles.
Sky and Scroll always going to be the team you expect to see in favorable positions. Like you highlight, in this situation, there is a very good team just ahead of them in their path to zone. I think they'll still be more than all right to get into zone safely. Can't say the same for everybody else though. iDrop and Gonzo trying to run their way on in. And it's going to be a choice of just the white line for Gonzo. Has to pause and take a break as he takes a bit of damage. Oh goodness, we're just seeing how difficult this rotation is for certain players in this lobby. Cringe and Twy holding on by a thread.
That early hindrance just coming back to haunt them. Even with that last refresh we saw on the replay reel, it's still just not enough. Sitting 71 below, neither of them has any form of shield to try and recover even further still, and the builds just so detrimental here. When you start busting out the wood, everyone knows that you are incredibly weak, and unfortunately the lobby focus just continues to be centralized around them. Pixie's gonna get credit for Twy on one, but Shark, Pixie, so many teams just looking directly at where Cringe and Twy were last spotted. And there's just no time left in this lobby. Cringe and Twy will have to sit this one out and hope that Game 8 fares a little bit better here. But other teams also same struggles with the surge. Vico trying to do what he can to stay standing tall here, but it is looking grim for a moment if he can get his health on the recovery tour. 285 above now, though. That's going to be a little bit of a bailout.
Doesn't matter how dominant you were in day one. Day two is a fresh slate. And if you want control in this lobby, you have to earn it. Cringe and Volko, they want to control the skies in this game. And there will be opportunities, but there will be plenty of teams in this lobby desperate to make hype plays to try and mount comebacks, and they have to fend them all off.
But look, one of the criticisms from our analysts, iDrop, Gonzo, they put themselves in great positions. They've got solid build counts to try and maintain it, but with 6 eliminations already, this is where they could really start to play catch up if they're able to continue controlling this mid-tier layer. Whether or not they want to actually try and challenge for height, though, we'll have to wait and see. But Sky, Scroll already doing what they do best, controlling the flow of traffic in that backside of zone. Doing a great job at just applying so much pressure, and that's going to allow them to continue their wraparound towards the front side, and it'll be very difficult for other teams to really cut across their position. Savage and Truly being one of them, but they're just getting pressured from every single angle. Truly going to get a big response here onto Swizzy, but he can't make it to the body. Savage goes down, and Truly, even with the full elimination credit, just not close enough. Another team taken out, but Cringe, Volko having a time about it from way overhead. No one seemingly challenging them just yet, but Sharktini, they might have taken notice. They're willing to go up. It's time to invest as Pixie now fighting for his life on the ultimate low.
Yeah, unfortunately for Sharktini, they're just running low on materials. A refresh might just be enough to convince them to reconsider for height. Pixie, though, as a solo, is going to have to try and fend off. The zone will start to pull back, and Cringe and Volko will look to reuse, recycle that height tarp. Sky and Scroll have already invested so many materials that they can just sort of walk back through these builds and just clean up the lobby. Refreshes will be available on their walls. They invest mats to get the mats back. And Cringe and Volko can't believe their luck right now. The pullback makes life on height just that bit easier for a moment.
But we're talking about Cringe and Volko and the benefits for them. It's the same case scenario for Sky and Scroll. So much of that low ground was in their piece control, and they are doing an excellent job at just sticking towards this front side, committed to the cause, refusing to allow anybody to really try and navigate any further towards that front side control. But Sharktini, they have run out of materials entirely. They've got to try and find some form of refresh. They've done a great job, at least, of avoiding a lot of that height focus.
And this is a scary situation for anyone in the lobby when Sharktini go on alert.
Beamish Darm, though, they're not the only ones. Sharktini, they've been caught out. It's actually going to be Velo. He was sitting inside the storm for a while, playing out his heals, but the damage has been done. Same pressure being applied, though, to iDrop and Gonzo. So many of these duos that had looked relatively healthy now finding themselves in circumstances where they've got to just see how many points, how many placements they can actually clutch out as an individual. And Teeny trying to gauge if he's going to run into Sky and Scroll, because he knows they've got to be down here with him.
Yeah, and everybody that we pan to seems to be struggling in the material department. You look at Sky's inventory, and he is chilling. He's looking good. And that might just be the keys to their victory here in this game. Teeny, his kite grief instincts kick in, and they won't even cost him as well. He takes Godoy down, but unfortunately, he will fall himself. And so now an opportunity for Sky and Scroll to take real control of this game as iDrop might just fall straight into their palms. And they're looking for that final closeout. Volko will fall. Sky will get the refresh. They will look to go up and try and close out this game.
iDrop doing everything in his power, but at the same time, we're facing the inevitable here. It's Sky and Scroll perfectly healthy. iDrop doing what he can to avoid their line of sight, but the builds are running out. Time is also running out. Sky and Scroll have managed to secure that elimination, but the last one to be found, Polo, nowhere left to hide at the end of it all. Still, well played to Sky and Scroll as they get their third victory royale in this Grand's competition, Levin.
Was it ever a doubt? The best team on day one start the day with a win, and no better win than that.
I can't even put it into better words than Levin. I mean, it was textbook Sky and Scroll, Takata.
They have just set the tone for how this Major 2 Grand Finals is gonna play out, okay? The consistency was back. They finished day one in first. They start day two with a win mini. It cannot get much better than that.
Wow. I mean, yeah. The question was going to be, could they continue it, right, in day 2? Realistically, it wasn't that big of a question because everyone knows what these guys are about. And the answer is very much a convincing yes. These guys are just unreal. The way they played that low ground was absolutely perfect. You saw it. They invested so many of their materials, and they're actually quite low on materials when that zone actually pulled back. So that helped them out. Not that they couldn't get the refreshes in the end, but because they invested all of those materials earlier on in that end game, they had so much of that piece control, which allowed them to pick up so many refreshes later on as well. And it's just an absolute joy to watch these guys operate on these low ground layers. This is what I was talking about. They had so much of this piece control. So many of these builds were actually theirs that they could just dictate how the low ground was actually played and sort of manipulate the rest of the lobby down below. Nice little elimination, of course, onto Cringe there, who again had a good game for them, for Volko and Cringe. But wow, I was actually looking at last major as well. After day 1, they were on 378 points, I think it was. This major 376. There's only a 2-point difference. Whereas I was looking, major 1, day 2, their first game was a 7th. This game 1 in Major 2 is a 1st. So it's like they're almost better than last Major, which they dominated as well. So could we be in for the same, Scott?
They almost got 100 points in that match. You said 376. Wow. They're at like 460 something now. Like, it is insane how clinical their precision is in everything they do. I'm excited to see them continue out today.
Well, there were some duos that got into trouble in the mid game, and there are some other duos that looked threatening. So let's talk about them after the break.
I got hit with that one. I'm popping med bit. Wait, short. I got 6 builds. No, max up. Wait, if you're mid play. 100! 100! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Milk can help you grow. Milk can't prevent your ride from blasting into space.
Welcome to the FNCS Europe Major 2 Grand Finals, aka a masterclass in how to get a victory royale from Sky and Scroll, because they made absolutely no mistakes in Game 7. It was so utterly deserved, that victory royale. There's not a single duo in this lobby that could have taken it from them because the end game was perfect. So let's talk about the less than perfect duos, even if they did some great things. Let's bring up the leaderboard, because actually, iDrop and Gonzo, they had a fantastic start yesterday. We talked about it in the pre-show. They kind of tailed off towards the end of the day, but they clearly had some conversations and reminded themselves of who they are, because that end game was marvelous, Mini Miner.
Yeah, it definitely was. This is nice. This is good to see. This is exactly what we saw from them sort of at the beginning of yesterday as well. The way they were playing these end games. iDrop absolutely popping. Obviously, Gonzo with a bunch of eliminations as well. I must say the zone was favorable for them. So we spoke about it at the beginning of the day. Another North Pole for this first game of day 2. So it's good, I suppose, that they're making the most of these North Poles. Of course, you don't want to waste the times when you're getting zone. But I expect bigger things from these guys. I expect them to keep dominating as well. As I mentioned at the beginning, Takata, the only slight concern is that optimal situation if teams come in, right? But still a great game.
Not only that, the other concern is they got a 3rd place with 9 eliminations. But when you got Sky and Scroll on top, they're still 130 points behind. Like, even a 3rd place with 9 eliminations. Look, it's put them in top 3. It'd be great to see them at the Global Championship, so I'm happy either way.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, this is stick with me on this theory, guys, even though we're all welcome to rubbish me in the chat, but Shark and Tini, they've gone up 1 place, and there's something we know about Shark and Tini. When they go big with their wins, they get a ton of eliminations. That Sky and Scroll win was nearly 100 points thereabouts. Shark and Tini, they can go further when they get wins in terms of points. So we could see them become a threat to Sky and Scroll at some point if Sky and Scroll have some dodgy games. And the thing about Shark and Tini in this game was we thought they maybe would go for height, but they had a bit of an issue needing some refreshes, so they had to go for the lurk, Takata.
Yeah, that's the tough part, right? We know how confidently they can pick up refreshes and eliminations, and the kind of win condition here for them was the overthrow high early. But as you see, when they went for that refresh after having no more materials to work with, Shark went down, Teeny was left alone, but it was still a great clutch up from Teeny. I think he got at least 1 or 2 eliminations and a very good placement, so can't be mad with that, Mini.
Oh, you can't be mad at all. This is much better from Shark and Tini. These guys, they had a really rough day yesterday. They didn't actually manage a top 10 outside of their win in Game 6. So to see them start to get these more consistent placements, that's how you're really going to challenge for that first place. Sky and Scroll, they're not immune to a bad game. We saw it in Major 1 towards the latter stage of the competition there. We saw it yesterday as well. They had, I think, 1 or 2 bad games yesterday. So they can take advantage of it, Shark and Tini, as long as they keep these consistent games up. We don't need 25 bombs here in Grands. You just need to get top 5s consistently, and they can do that.
Well, let's talk about one of the duos who is on the cusp of qualification for Belgium, because Cringe and Volko, the Fortnite gods, were smiling on them in that end game because they had probably the luckiest moving zone of all time, Takata.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'd call it luckiest, but they got a good pullback in the final moving there. And what's interesting about Cringe and Volko here is going into day 2, they were 25th on the leaderboard. But from that match, they've now pushed themselves right outside the cusp of qualifying to Globals in 18th. So if they can keep this pace up, it could be a very good day 2 for them.
Yeah, they played this height really well. They held onto it perfectly. I was fully expecting Shark and Tini to sort of look for a refresh and then go up, but real credits to these guys to actually just hold on to it so well. Really unfortunate there for Cringe. I don't want that again, but nice to see these guys actually coming up on top. And it's actually something we didn't really get to see too much of yesterday. It's a team that I'm excited about overall, but a team that probably now have to have their sights set on Globals if they can have more games like that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of these other duos we're seeing here. Hari and Cammy, let's talk about what happened to them, if you don't mind, if it's not too painful a memory. They actually got surprise contested at the start of the game by a duo that actually surprised Con Thomas and Focus yesterday. Ignard and Quisky. I wonder if they're going to be trying to bother them again when we head into Game 2, Mini Miner.
That's the difficulty. I mean, you know, we've seen how that Cammy split plays. They must have vodded it as well. We've seen the landing on Thomas. They were poised to take Nebs and Nathan's drop spot at the beginning of the weekend as well. I guess those guys don't really know where they're going, but the fact they've found success now off spawn there, really worrying signs for Cammy.
Yeah, it's tough. Another worry I have is Cringe and Twy, because they were incredibly dominant in yesterday's matches, and you know, they didn't do terribly. They made it to the end game, but it could have been a much better match for them.
Yeah, it was the fellow UK duo, wasn't it? It was Nebs and Nathan, I think, one of those early game fights that took down Cringe, and Twy had to go get the reboot. And again, it's really unfortunate because it's one of those games where you do get a decent zone for them up in the north side of the map. So they were able to make something or other of the game. One elimination, didn't quite make it into the placement points, I don't think. So really unfortunate for them. Ending yesterday with a bad game, starting today with a bad game. This is really going to test their mettle now.
Well, let's see if they can find the adaptability they need in Game 8, because it's ready with Levin and Taco.
This is a bit of a dangerous position, though, to see some of these teams in right now, Levin, because we are staring at Sky and Scroll with a crazy lead right now in first place position on the leaderboard. I mean, 135 points, I want to say, that separates them between first and second. So for Cringe and Twy, Hardy, Cammy, even Sharktini, all those teams kind of hovering around that top 5 area, they are really going to have to step it up another gear here if they have any intentions of trying to play catch up. But it's just so hard, because how do you stop Sky and Scroll?
It's not just the lead, Taco, and points, it's the momentum they have. They're playing so well, it doesn't look like anything's going to stop them from continuing to play well. And I feel like I'm just repeating the things we were saying about them during Major 1. And we know how that one ended. And so let's see if anyone has the guts to contest in game number 8.
You know, Levin, what's it like? Because in Major 1, you were on the analyst desk side of things. But now you're getting a front row seat for what's happening with Sky and Scroll. And that's got to be a fun change of pace.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's great. I think, I was reflecting on some of the grand finals I've commentated in the past. And the last one I commentated here on EU was all the way back in Chapter 4, Season 3. And that was Swizzy's win with Putrick, where Swizzy had a generational performance. Before that one, it was obviously 6 out of 12, Queasy and Veno, and their fantastic win. And so, without speaking too soon, I feel like I've had some great grands I've had the pleasure of commentating. And if Sky and Scroll were to continue playing how they're playing and win, you definitely put them in that category of just all-time legendary FNCS wins. What do we have here? A resume. Not the resume, actually. This one's a change-up, right? No Riley and Frostroki yesterday were fighting against Ping and Ghost for most of the day. Here in this game, they're up against Podosai and Sato.
Just seems like for Frostroki and Noah Riley, they will not be able to avoid having some form of off-spawn contestation taking place. And for Podosai and Sato, though, separate building controls. Some would probably argue Noah Riley for Strokey maybe a bit more favorable in that regard, but neither side really getting too involved just yet. Both teams trying to make sure that they're in a more set-up position, more set-up loadouts before they start interacting with the other. But Gonzo and iDrop, very early on in the last lobby, we saw them sort of leading the charge with good amount of elimination counts. I believe Gonzo already had 4 by the time we started to see how that endgame was developing for these two. So one thing is certain, iDrop and Gonzo, they are not running away from a fight. And not only that, but iDrop also looking to really shift that narrative that's kind of plagued his name for quite some time in terms of finals performances. This might just be the one to do it. Hope not speaking too soon, because obviously iDrop, even reflecting back on some of his previous finals performances, I believe only 1 top 5. He's had plenty inside of the top 10, but it's just getting over that last hill. That's really going to be the priority.
Look, Taco, if he doesn't do it this time, I don't think we can blame him. You know, when Sky and Scroll playing as good as they are, you know? And that's the funny thing, the desk sort of highlighted it. Like, it had a good game, you know? But when you got a team that's just going to come through and win, it just makes it so tough. Sato and Podosai, I did see it in the feed, and we get to see the visuals here now as to what went down. Podosai and Sato win the fight, and to be fair, they were also landing and contesting here quite a fair amount in some of the games yesterday, so seemingly a continuation of that Osborne battle all the way at Cluster Coast. Surprise, surprise. Sky and Scroll based up in Frosted Flats.
It's just so challenging for anyone to even want to remotely consider off spawn fighting them because, again, Flashbacks Major 1. We saw the money hop. We saw the talent involved and just how well they were able to defend their actual drop. And for Cringe and Twy fighting not too far away from where Sky and Scroll are at. But they've got to make sure that they continue to hold their own up against the likes of Dendipuzo and Azat, who originally had been conning Darman Deemish over at Sunken Shores. Now willing to see if they can hedge their bets a little bit more mid-map. But for Cringe and Twy, even throughout yesterday's competition, you know, they were very vocal on socials about it, dealing with a bit of a triple contest at times even for their given spot, and pain only continues to grow here for Cringe and Twy because they recognize the fact Huddy, Fishy starting to make their way inwards. This fight getting a little bit more active than what they would have hoped for, but they might be able to get the better end of things still. Might be able to potentially catch another one of these teams off guard, but for Sad About, just all too close for comfort.
I think as we start to look at what means what for who in this lobby, if the win does start to become out of reach, it becomes a question of who will be our EU representatives at the Global Championships. Of course, here on our screens, we are watching Big Cheeseburger Malibuka, who already has a spot secured after his summit win with Vico. And here at the bus stop, they're looking to try and make a play on Pink and Haris. The question is, do Pink and Haris have any inkling whatsoever that there could be a team camping beneath them?
Well, yesterday we did see Pink and Haris in a couple of exchanges with Vico and Malibuka. Although arguably Malibuka and Vico benefiting a bit more from that, but still, even if they're not fully aware of this lurk that could potentially unfold, the fact of the matter is, Pink and Haris have certainly had to fight tooth and nail already, but it's still challenging them.
Yeah, I don't think they have a clue. I don't think they... Like, I'm curious as to if they think right now that there is a chance that there could be a team, like, with the timings of, like, when they were scouting, because they've been scouting around, right? And obviously they're actively looking. Yeah, Haris is looking down. I think maybe, even if they aren't sure there's a team beneath them, they're at least aware it's a possibility. And with that in mind, I do hope they look to clear their angles. And whenever it is they decide to leave the bus, they decide to leave as safely as possible.
Well, part of it's also just the way that they keep shifting their focus back towards those mountain faces. And the direction that they're staring, it's almost like they're expecting to see Vico or Malibuka at some point, since those would be the next door neighbors. And yeah, the fact that they haven't been able to actually scope it out fully, definitely got to watch their next step. Truly, Savage, kind of sizing up where Nebs and Nathan are currently seated at, but definitely anticipating most of these teams to continue utilizing some of the advantages provided by sitting inside of the storm up until those presence of that first partial zone, largely just because of the fact that you got the vendings. You can spend so much more time tanking up the earlier surge or storm ticks and knowing that as long as you're able to allocate your surge from somewhere, you will likely be in a pretty set position here. And for Nebs, Nathan, while it might be looking kosher currently, this is a big part of the reason why Nebs securing the engagement, 2 solid eliminations. They did take a good amount of damage in the process though, Levin, so likely will still have to try and be a little bit more proactive in terms of rebuilding that surge counter. But you've got teams like Shark and Teeny just holding it down over by Calamari Canyon. It just makes map traversing all that more complicated.
Yeah, the question I have for Shark and Teeny is, when is the big game coming? You know? They're almost similar. I'm not making a comparison, chill out, Faxity, but they're almost similar to Peterbot and Poyo and NA, where, like, no matter how the day's going for Pete and Poyo, you're always expecting the bigger limb game win to come. And I think in EU, Shark and Teeny are similar in that sense, right? They've been you know, fairly quiet, had some decent moments here and there, but you'd expect a bigger limb game win to come eventually.
That's the main thing that sort of everyone's looking out for, but at the same time, you know, is it going to be too little too late by the time they decide to actually pull out that sort of calling card? Because no one's conning Sky and Skrull. No one's dropping directly on them. No one's preventing them from doing their standard strategy, and it's just going to continue to profit for them at the rate that they're going. So we'll have to wait and see whether or not somebody decides to try and step it up.
Well, Pink definitely sees that ramp, right? Like, surely. Like, sure.
You want to believe so.
Nah, he must have seen that ramp from his angle, right? Like, we didn't see the POV, but surely from the angle, you must see, like, the corner of the ramp. Either way. They're not trying to hide anymore. They want to get the job done. They don't have the whites to actually play this as slowly as they maybe would have wanted to. And so zone pulls in. Let's get the damage. We want our damage so we can get out and leave. Give us our damage, please, Pink and Haris. We have waited patiently. We have been kind, but we cannot wait much longer.
Alabuka especially, he's just leaving it up to Vico. Try and get that additional damage, but you see it already. Most of his Chug Jug having to be used, and just a steep time investment for these two also. And for them to not really be able to net much Surge likely means that they're just gonna have to revisit that conversation. I don't think that there's been any set conclusion just yet, especially not with the way that they were kind of leaving. It sort of appeared like they were just trying to make them think that they were getting out of dodge, but not really.
Yeah, it's not the ideal situation to be in whatsoever. But as they sort of look at the map here, they do have a straightforward path into zone when it comes to the map control and the space they occupy. So they'll be willing to try and commit to something to find the damage in the storm if they have to before running in towards that battlewood area as more and more players start to rotate in and things get a bit more congested. Problem they might have is Velo and Zynox here, who are sort of wrapping around, will eventually sort of run into those guys at some point, you'd think.
Trying to do what they can to avoid some of that congestion. We've seen them opt for the big wraparound flanks and trying to make some good use out of the dead side entrances, but just another one of those teams where through yesterday, being conned, you're able to build up your Surge a little bit more consistently, but now having to really remeasure how you're actually going to secure some of that Surge. Swizzy and Pixie, 555, no problems just yet. Trying to apply some extra damage where they can against Scary and Saez. But Swizzy and Pixie have done a great job at claiming the bulk of Battlewoods, and it was not an easy task, but yet they've managed to overtake it.
Yeah, sitting in a great spot when it comes to being able to look for damage, whether that is looking in the POI or looking away from it for where the congestion's coming in, and then to be able to wrap into dead side. Skrull, again, picking up some nice damage. These guys, again, they're just setting up for another really good game here, Taco, which we'll see. Maybe this is one of their hiccup games that leaves room for a closer finish for the day. iDrop, unfortunately, going down here really starts to create issues when we talk about that race for a close competition. Gonzo's been impressive, but in this situation, there's not much he can do.
From the pan straight to the fire, though. Runs away from Vico and Malabuka, but Pink and Haris waiting right in the wings. An early departure now for iDrop and Gonzo, and if you're Sky or Skrull, you've got to be cheesing big time right now, because one of your immediate competitors, now fully eliminated, is just going to give them all the benefit of trying to continue distancing that point gap. A quick review of how Haris and Pink got the job done here, but yeah, Gonzo, strong of a fragger as he might be, In that sort of situation, even the best can fold. It's just not a whole lot left to work with here. Is Jewel, Tidy, now making their approach onto edge of zone. Still playing it a bit slower here. They've recognized the fact Tidy has got a little bit of an advantage here against the likes of Cringe and Volko, but they don't want to overstep it. They want to ensure that they still have the option to fall back to where they felt a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more secure, because now other members inside the lobby, inside that edge of zone, starting to look their way, and Jewel and Tidy losing a good chunk of their surge. This is a big part of the reason, though, why Tidy was so adamant on trying to fight Volko and Cringe, though. That surge just looking dire currently. Almost 400 below. It's just going to continue getting worse. They've got medkits, but without shield, they're going to be forced to just try and dive straight into the box here, but Volko Cringe is just not budging. They fully realize this team is desperate, and that's just going to be a free refresh.
And this is problematic, not just for them, but look at Twy and Cringe's situation. Again, we just watched iDrop and Gonzo, the third place team, fall. They have no chance to get points out of this game. Cringe and Twy look like they might be following suit. And now Twy will fall. Cringe doesn't have much to really respond with. But his surge situation means he just has to do something. And unfortunately, Taco, it looks like our first place team, Sky and Scroll, are going to get another opportunity to extend their lead here.
And Cringe just playing out the medkit. Really no other options here. Having to find such immediate back-to-back elims, realistically, and it still might not even be enough damage. He is just well below on that surge threshold. A lot of materials, though.
And I think the biggest problem for Cringe and Twy is obviously yesterday they were contested and they were winning a lot of those fights, and that early damage, it goes a long way. We always talk about the difficulties of being contested, but when you're a contested team who's just completely dominating the other team, we don't really often talk about how detrimental it is for you when that team then decides to leave, and now you have to re-establish and re-figure out what your early game strategy is going to be. And if you're a team who's in your situation where you're fighting for an FNCS championship for the first time and having to make day 2 adjustments, it's never the easiest spot to be in. And so I have empathy for them, and hopefully they can find the solutions in the next game. But unfortunately for Cringe and Twy, it won't be in this one.
Could be a big come up, though, for Pink and Haris, as long as they don't get stuck dealing with Saez, because there was a lot of builds on Cringe's body. But yeah, that is just a very difficult reality for Cringe and Twy to face. A lot of people were questioning how are they going to fare with some of the pressure that day 2 tends to come with, and well, they'll still have lobby 9 to see if they can figure it out. Savage truly, though, 209 below. So many teams just stuck trying to overcome some of these surge woes, and it's just not enough. Savage and Truly out of this one yet again. Ju not looking to be in all that better of a position either, despite being the sole survivor of that outcome. And Pink Haris, despite things having been a bit promising for a moment, it's just so short-lived. Haris, though, doing a great job. Get some counter pressure, so Pink will be able to try and send himself forward. The overdrive going to end up working against him. Teeny shooting him right out of the skies. Malabuka also in a similar fate. Might be looking to play for the revive here onto Vico, but they are just narrowly above that damage threshold. They don't have a lot in terms of rebuilding up their whites, and this is just going to be a very fickle spot now because a very healthy duo overhead, but Hari and Cammy, pressure's on. They're trying to see if they can overcome. They need a big pop-off performance here, Levin, if they want to continue trying to play catch-up.
And we'll see whether or not these guys can mount a comeback. Shark and Teeny now remain the duo in this lobby with the best chance to try and catch up and make this a real race for Sky and Scroll. Unfortunately, in their pursuit of trying to catch up, they still have to deal with the fact that Sky and Scroll are in this lobby and still look healthy enough to mount a big point gain.
The only real stumble so far for Sky and Scroll is that they haven't fully overtaken the front side just yet. Their material count waning enough that they know they're going to need to find a refresh. They want to reestablish that type of control that we saw to them in Game 7. Qski might be able to provide it. Granted, he's looking to block off his walls efficiently. Doesn't want to be that freebie component for Sky and Scroll. Pixie, Swizzy also trying to break their way through, but they lose track of what's taking place behind them, eating a lot of damage in the process of trying to break their way through this front side of zone. But Shark and Teeny, Midro and Tweg in a world of hurting right now as these two look to collapse. They want to challenge for the high ground. So far, it looks rather successful. Shark and Teeny have eaten the bulk of the damage here, but at the same time, they've managed to elevate, and that's the real winning component.
Yeah, and Twek and Midro's position was untenable. They weren't in a spot to fight after they looked to try and split height, and now the drop down will be their demise. Unfortunately for Cammy, he's the one that has to face him, and he loses Hari along the way. And that just again continues to open the pathway for a big game here as Sky and Scroll look to hunt him down.
Out of all the duos possible to encounter inside of that building, the fact that it would be Sky and Scroll is a tough break here. But Cammy still standing, still kicking, trying to make something work here. Swizzy, Pixie, very similar notes. Swizzy hoping that he can get an opportunity to heal, but they are picking up a lot of leftovers along the way, and Cammy just can't break through all these pre-existing builds working against him. He'll get caught and taken out. But Sky Scroll, this is probably the weakest that we've seen them look in this game so far, Levin. This might be the opportunity now. Shark, Teeny, your time to shine. And they need to make sure that they really show out here because Swizzy, Pixie might be able to give them a run for their money. All they need is a little bit more builds. And from that front side position, Sky recognizing the fact Pablo's been taken out. Counter elimination here, but Thomas wrapping around. All these players stuck inside of the water, and it's just too much. Sky can't actually break through. Shark and Teeny now in the driving seat.
We wanted to see Sky and Scroll tested, and now the rest of the lobby has to watch as Shark and Teeny mounts to come back. Swizzy and Pixie, they do not want us to forget their names in this competition, but they have to try and find real control of this low ground. They have one side to themselves, but they need to find a refresh to match it. Teeny will drop down in an attempt to try and find some limbs along with Shark. We said we wanted to see the big game from them, and it might just be now. They have to close out the rest of these limbs. Every point counts for these two in this competition, and they don't want to throw away the win, but they need to get aggressive, and Pixie will go down. Swizzy will follow. TV is insane. Can they find the rest? Turtle will go up, but Shark will shut him down. These guys cannot be overlooked. Shark and Teeny with a 10 elimination game.
Nah, that was nasty from Teeny, though. The way that he just 180 whipped straight to taking those shots. I mean, Swizzy Pixie, they did their best. Same for us and Turtle, but only so much left to be done. I want to hear more of a breakdown, though, from the desk.
Thanks, guys. We were saying Shark and Teeny, it's not impossible for them to catch up on Sky and Scroll, but to do it, they need to have big games, and they just delivered one, Mini Miner.
That's exactly what they need to do. Perfect height take right there. Really nicely done from these guys. They have finally awoken here on day number 2 after such a good finish of day 1. And I was looking back. I remember in the last post game, I was talking about Sky and Scroll having quite a similar or even better performance here than what they did in the last major. Remember we talked about it at the beginning of the show, Shark and Teeny, they came back on day 2 last major. In that major, they won their second game. And here we are again. They've won their second game as well. So could we be seeing yet another huge comeback from Shark and Teeny? I certainly hope so, because realistically, right now, they look like the team to be.
Yeah. I mean, they went from 21st to 5th in the last major, as you were alluding to, Minnie. But not only that, in their past 3 matches, they've got into 2 wins and a first place. Okay, they ended yesterday with a win. They started today with a 5th, and now not only did they win the match, but as Frankie was mentioning after the last match, when they win these games, they win them with a lot of eliminations. Now, 10 elims, it feels weird to say, but I feel like that's not even a crazy match for them, right? It's like what you would expect. It's the bare minimum from a Shark and Teeny win. So if this trend continues, I'm scared for the rest of the lobby.
Well, the best part about it is they had it when Sky and Scroll went down in, what was it, a measly 6th place or something. That was absolutely terrible. Sky and Scroll, you know, they made it count though. You know, in the game that Sky and Scroll didn't do good in, they actually managed to get the win. And that's really important, of course, for these guys, because you need to make that point differential up. Sky and Scroll, they're going to continue to have good games. They're going to continue to have really solid, consistent placements. But to set yourself apart from them and to catch them up, Shark and Teeny need to keep doing that.
Well, we'll be able to see how close Shark and Teeny are gaining on Sky and Scroll in just a few minutes. So join us then.
I got here. I'm popping in that bit. Wait, short. Got 6 builds? No, max up. Wait, if you're mid play. 100! 100! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Milk can help you grow. Milk can't prevent your ride from blasting into space.
Welcome back to FNCS Europe. It's day 2 of the grand finals here in Major 2, and Shark and Teeny have just claimed their second victory royale with 10 eliminations. Contrast that with Sky and Scroll. They've got 3, but with their victory royales, they tend to get less than 10 eliminations. Their best game has been 7 elims, the other 2, 6. And that's important when you think about the points, because Takata, Shark and Teeny, they're just over 100 points behind Sky and Scroll. And if they can replicate this success again, they could very well take over.
Well, you say that, but the issue is, look, Sky and Scroll, they basically had, I don't even like using this word, a bad match per se, and it was a 6th place with 5 eliminations. That is not bad enough to be overthrown by Shark and Teeny. They would have to go down way earlier and get worse placements. Now, this is exactly what Shark and Teeny have to do, but Sky and Scroll need to also just keep playing exactly how they're playing, and they can keep that first place spot, Mini.
Yeah, and I think this game is as important as that first game win that we saw from them. Yeah, of course, you know, it's a 6th versus a 1st, but the fact that these guys can still operate so effectively well when things are a little bit scuffed. We see it here, low on builds, all in the water. Sky's having to clutch a little bit, try and find some damage. The fact that these guys can still squeeze out a 6th, yeah, it's not their best game, just goes to show how much of a force they are to be reckoned with. A lot of that is down to the fact that they are so good as solos. Of course, we've broken that down so much, but just being able to stay in the game for just that extra bit longer, squeeze out all those extra placement points and eliminations, even when things aren't quite going your way in that end game, is what makes these guys so good.
I mean, that cheeky, opportunistic 5th elimination from Sky onto Pablo was chef's kiss. It's one of the things that just marks these guys out, those little details, squeezing every drop out of every game. Let's talk, though, about Swizzy and Pixie, my favorite day 2 team. They didn't have a bad start yesterday, but now we're starting to see them play their game. And it's interesting to me because in the past, I associate these guys with whoever they were playing with being high ground kings, but the low ground is where we're seeing them on repeat, Mini Miner.
Yeah, it's good to see. I mean, it's just that consistency from these guys that's been really impressive to see over the course of the weekend. Really important game for them as well, actually, this last game here to Carter. 3rd place with only 2 eliminations, but what that means is that they were able to leapfrog a lot of those teams that were just below them, or just above them originally, now just below them, because, of course, they didn't have good games. And these are 2 very experienced players. These are 2 players that have been at the very top of the EU competitive, so should stand up when it comes to the Grand Finals lobby and not shrink down.
Yeah, they're waking up. They got 31st to finish the day yesterday. Then today they started with a 13th. It wasn't looking incredible, but after that 3rd place, let's hope that they can keep that momentum going forwards.
Well, our top 3 duos, they've all qualified for the Global Championships, but iDrop and Gonzo haven't yet, and nor have Cringe and Twy and Hari and Cammy. Let's talk about Hari and Cammy, because it was up to Cammy to try and solo clutch further into the game for that one. But unfortunately, he was being pursued by Sky Takata, which is a position you don't want to be in.
Yeah, definitely not. But to be fair, it's a lot better than being contested off spawn and going down in 48th place, like in the first game of today. So they got 12th. It's not too bad. They were maybe a little scared. They only had 1 total elimination. They were just kind of farming as much placements as possible. In their matches yesterday, let me remind you, 8th, 2nd, 9th. They were getting top 10 basically every endgame they got to. So a 12th here in game 2. It's not necessarily, you know, very bad, but at the same time, I'm hoping they step it up a bit.
Yeah, they're the sort of team that maybe at the beginning of the day you think, oh, maybe these guys could actually take home this FNCS. But then, of course, when things don't get off to the greatest start, it can be difficult to keep that momentum going. Now, of course, realistically, if you look at the overall weekend when we started it, their goal should be, and still is, to qualify for the Global Championships. So they should be just fine in that department. And it's just about keeping those consistent end games going and trying to reach as high as they can, because realistically, they've already ticked off that Global Championship call, you have to imagine.
Now, let's take a look at page 2 of the leaderboard. I'm trying to do the mental maths and try and work out where the cutoff is right now. I don't know if you're aware, to Carter, but we know that Dom and Demas, for example, they have already qualified, and so have Chino and Pablo. So it's fair to say that Rax and Yanis right now, and potentially Pixofty and Seren as well, are in with a shot of qualifying. It's interesting with Yanis and Rax because we've barely spoken about them all weekend. We spoke about them in the pre-show yesterday, and then we didn't talk about them at all after that, but they've been quietly making headway, it looks like. Do we think that this is just a case of trying to adjust to the lobby, Mini Miner? Do you think we're going to see more from this duo? Because we'd expect to, because of what we saw in the heats.
Oh, definitely. These guys were really, really good in heats. Of course, they're growing into the weekend, I think, as well. I think the way they started was okay, not amazing. They just need a little bit of that confidence, especially when you're playing with a player like Rax. Maybe just needs that little bit of a boost of confidence. They had 1 good game yesterday, I think it was, that was really solid. The rest have just been pretty average to Carter, but that's what I was talking about at the beginning of the day today. It's like you don't need every single game to be really good. You just need a few sort of diamonds in the rough, if you like, to push yourself up the leaderboard.
So the cutoff is actually that 16th place spot. There was 5 global qualified duos in the top yesterday, and now there's 7. So it's kind of moving up and up. Mr. Savage and Truly actually are 1 point off being the cutoff of qualifying to globals. So we'll see if Rax and Yanis can keep it up. They're in 12th, so they're actually pretty comfortably there right now. But for the duos below them, it's going to be a bit nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I was expecting a better performance from them on day 1. I actually put them in my own top 5 predictions just because I believe in the power of the experience and the young fragger. So let's see if they can at least qualify for Antwerp. And let's see if Savage and Truly can also have a stronger game. Pablo and Chino is an interesting one for us as well, because actually they started so strongly in game 1 yesterday. They're another duo that kind of can get by without you noticing them. And then when they have a big game, you really stand up and go, oh yeah, this team to Carter can play Fortnite.
They can. This is a duo that's more than capable of winning the whole competition, but they really just had a devastating start yesterday after their second place. They kicked it off with the top 2, but then it was 49th, 49th, 50th, 33rd. Many, it just started going downhill, but at least they've started things off a bit stronger today, but I think we're almost ready for the next game, Frankie.
We are, so let's see if they can do even stronger in game number 9.
It's a really interesting factor, though, that Takada is bringing up here, Levin, and that's knowing that 7 out of 9 already global certified teams are currently sitting inside of that top 14 portion of the leaderboard. So that little bit of an extension trickling down to now top 16, and probably everyone in this lobby hoping that for Size and Scary, Chap, and Flixie, they also wind up in that top half because it just makes it all the easier. So let's see what happens here in game 9.
We've already had a brilliant start to the action today, and I am so curious to see who has more in store for us. We have so many different teams playing for the championship win, playing for a global spot, playing for their pride at the bottom of their leaderboard and their Osborne reputation. For Cringe and Twy, they are playing to return to the action. And we know Surge has been a problem for them, so this early elim at 100 damage for Twy will hopefully do wonders for their hopes today.
Would be even better still if Cringe is able to get some additional damage off onto Bimbo or Radeon, but Twy and Cringe might be the epitome of suffering from success. You know, day 1 having gone so favorably for them, and Cringe Twy, they're not gonna let this opportunity go to waste. They've been trying to figure out a new method to build up that surge so it can stop plaguing them in these endgame instances, but right now, Godoy, Polo, trying to extend it in that return fire. It's a little bit more than what they were anticipating, and Godoy might just be able to turn the tides on this one if they're not careful. Polo, potentially trying to get brought back into the mix, but Cringe will quickly shut that down, as he should. But now Bimbo Radeon also applying a little bit of additional pressure from a distance. They need to ensure that this is concise, and they find it fast enough because Cammy closing in rapidly, also looking to try and alleviate some of those surge woes. Oh.
Wait. This is not good for Sky and Scroll or any Danish fans. Nebs and Nathan, they are looking to take their early damage seriously, and they've set their sights on Sky and Scroll. A ruffle or a hurdle that they have to overcome now in their early game strategy.
Oh, you had it though, ruffling their feathers a bit, right? But Nathan and Nebs, while Frosted Flans isn't too far away from the 0 point, at the same time, getting that little bit of damage in, still just a bit of a setback here. And not only that, but when you think about where Nathan and Nebs are probably trying to prioritize building their surge, knowing that how these zones are pooling, it might be working against them.
And that's something to keep an eye out for. Nathan and Nebs in this game didn't, get a knock and start fighting them. But if they're going to continue to look for opportunities to get damage onto Sky and Scroll, if Sky and Scroll aren't careful, there may be a game where Nebs with his crazy aim hits a crazy beam and all of a sudden you're one man down and it completely derails your game plan. We'll see if even that little engagement was enough to frustrate their plan, just enough to where Shark and Teeny can continue to try and come back and close the gap.
And it's scary to think about too, because for Shark and Teeny, when you see them throwing up games where they're netting over 100 points per lobby, that victory royale is just sort of looming over the heads right now of Sky and Scroll, because while it looks like it's still a pretty monumental gap between first and second, the fact of the matter is we know that Shark and Teeny can put up the numbers to match the pace. And for Cringe and Twy, now cycling right back, we know that they had a lot of success in the early off spawns yesterday, but they've got to try and make up for some of that damage they ate after dealing with Godoy and Polo. Yakuza Aza, Bimbo Radeon, though, just further complicating things. You want to look for a clear angle, but it's tough because you know that there's third parties at play here, and you don't want to get sandwiched in the process.
Not at all. You have to fight carefully. with the consideration of their surge struggles would mean that they maybe are just a bit more desperate for the damage now rather than wanting to deal with things later on. Sometimes that over-eagerness can just catch you out a little bit.
Can't forget about Chap and Flixie, who also seem to just be steadily closing in here. Managed to avoid any sort of attention, but Bimbo and Radion, they'll probably be some of the first to be alerted if Chap and Flixie decide to get a little bit closer still. But with the way that Cringe and Twy are currently split from each other, Lev, this could go really bad or really well in a heartbeat, because one big shot to open things up would mean great collapse there out of each other's counterpart. But for Danny Puzo and Azat playing hip to hip, they might have the advantage too. Just playing those defensive metrics. Yanis and Rax.
Oh.
That is not the kind of bounce back that you'd be aiming for in day 2. Tough scenes across the board.
Rax might have some ops in the production team, man, because that was a rough one.
You hear Rax in replay, you think it's going to be elimination, right?
Look, there's a lot of people who might be watching guys for the first time. Rax is a great player. Rax is one of the most talented players in this lobby. That is not the best he has to offer, but unfortunately, that is what he had to show in this case. For Yanis, though, he will have to do his best to get Rax back in the game, so hopefully he can start to provide some more highlights for us.
It's just even tougher still to think about, because they were sitting in that 12th place position just inside of the cusp of where they want to be. But with teams like Jewel and Tidy having success early on, you know a healthy duo is bound to be a pretty big threat here in overtaking your position. But Heatwave Harbor, not necessarily up for grabs. This is still primarily where Thomas and Focus like to operate out of, and it's interesting that they're just letting this one come to a little bit of a slower match. They saw the eliminations, Jewel and Tidy, a little bit too quick, so no real third-party options just yet, as you go Malabuka. Lurk game 1 didn't go so well. Lurk this time around, well, a bit better, but still nowhere near what they needed it to be at. And that early elimination is just going to continue to pose a lot of drawback for this duo.
Cammy and Hari, a team who I think their performances surprised a lot of people yesterday. But I think showcasing a lot of what has made both of these players so great throughout their careers. Thomas and Focus, I think, are yet to show us their greatness. Two players who have all the talent to be competing for FNCS titles, but are yet to really push themselves into that type of standing.
Still can't count them out just yet, though. We know that with the way a lot of these zones have been going, it's kind of worked against them.
What do you think needs to change for them, though? I feel like we've just not really seen them be a factor in any of these endgames, whether it be playing for height and power positions or low ground, mid ground dominance. We haven't really seen them play.
Genuinely just want to see them get much more aggressive way earlier on. You've got two of the best aimers on the region in one duo, and yet it feels like we only ever really get an opportunity to check in with them being a bit fraggy if somebody's trying to challenge for the vending around Heatwave Harbor, but they're just capable of so much more. We've seen them be so much more, and in a Grand's lobby, it would be, I think, a huge favor to themselves to just also start reminding the region exactly what sort of potential the public eye has always kind of looked at them at.
So we saw Nebs and Nathan taking shots towards Sky and Scroll, and we wondered, will it affect them much? seemingly not so much for now. Based up as usual, looking for damage, and he might just find some off over to Pablo and Chino.
Pablo and Chino might have plans of their own, though. Have to remember, they were the only team to actually challenge Sky and Scroll in that first major. But so just check back in and see whether or not that actually goes either way for those two teams, Flixie and Chap. They've been lurking a bit, still didn't necessarily get a clear pairing of eliminations that they would have liked onto Ivan or Hizix. Still have bendings to play through from Golden Grove, though. Sharktini, another duo, just continuing to kind of scope out the area, gauge whether or not they'll have enough surge to kind of carry them through for that mid-late game circumstances. But they're making it very difficult for teams to actually cut through this section of the map. Actually got a handful in their sights, Tidy and Jewel, but it's Teeny who's actually on the receiving end of some damage for the moment. It's baited if he should just pause and heal. Fortunately, they're not going to be able to get much more than that for the time being.
Yeah, that's really bad. When you're playing a storm like this, you're banking on being able to deal as much as you can for as minimal received back. And so for them to not really get much damage off of Tidy and Jewel whatsoever, you can see, yeah, the desperation for Teeny, who sort of wants to just hunt them down and see if he can sneak any sort of tag or any sort of damage. The question becomes, will Tidy and Jewel be ready for this? Maybe not. They've run into Bimbo and Radion, and that distraction might just be enough to allow Teeny to lurk his way on in and get some free damage to make up for what's lost.
Based on where Shark's at, Shark might have even been able to relay to Teeny the sort of box fight that's beginning to unfold here as Jewel, Tidy, a little bit stuck now, trying to contend with Radion and Bimbo, but both Tidy and Bimbo looking incredibly low. Teeny, the potentially, probably, this could be a great opportunity to strike, but he's still playing it patient, still wants to ensure that when he does make his entrance, that it's going to net him surge. It's going to net him damage, but now Shark and Teeny, you'll have to watch as their prey just takes this fight somewhere else, completely out of the eye of where Shark was actually based at, and for Tidy and Jewel, this is definitely a very beneficial win here as they take down Bimbo and Radion. That's going to make 4 eliminations already for these two.
That's been one of the most fun things about watching Tidy and Jewel today. They are not afraid of a fight. In fact, they allow fights to play into their favor. They want to get aggressive. They want to box fight people. Truly, and Mr. Savage just allowing this competition to maybe slip through their fingers just a bit. Day 1 was certainly a good start. Win to start the day and finished in top 10. A great performance, a great spot to be in. And today was just about continuing more of the same. Unfortunately, not quite there yet, but still plenty of games to get back into rhythm.
Savage and Truly also taking note of some of the players trying to make their way back down, touching solid ground. Minori not going to get the chance, will be dropped here, but the nature of this lobby for day 2, everyone seems to be playing at a much slower pace in comparison to how day 1 sort of panned out, and part of the reason why we see so many teams struggling for their surge. Initially, everyone had kind of been a lot more willing, I think, to sort of duke things out off spawn, but today's competition, it's all about who can play the Storm the best, not get tagged up on their way towards the edge of zone here. But Yanis Rax, they need a recovery point, especially after that early mistake. And if there's ever a time to do it, it would certainly be right now. Only 18 above on the damage threshold, and material count not exactly where it needs to be. They want to pose further threat here. And yeah, just like that, Surge starting to work against them. They only need a little bit. Not a lot, but even then, no one really providing them much of an opportunity here.
Let's take a look at what Gonzo's cooking up. Patiently waiting at the toilet and... Oh boy, cheating and gear ass. Didn't see what hit him.
Rajab and Gonzo, we saw them camping out the teleporters, camping out the porta potties now. Methods of transportation just not seeming to be very safe when these two are in the lobby, but that's definitely going to pay them huge favors. These rotations. Managed to try and isolate a bit from the rest of the lobby. They know Pinker is directly next to them. Nathan Nebs also just underneath the bridge face. Sky and Scroll could be in a world of hurting here. It all depends on just how far Savage and Truly actually want to take this, but Savage doesn't have the luxury of deciding. He just needs to start getting active alongside his duo, Truly. They are currently below on the Surge threshold, and neither of them has any form of shield. They're going to have to depend on body loot to make up the difference here. Hellfire and Winter. This is not going to be an easy battle for them to overtake. Savage and Truly instead reconsidering just when they want to try and pounce here. Sky and Scroll, no stoppage whatsoever. They were in some trouble. They managed to bail themselves right back out.
What a game it would be if, after witnessing Shark and Teeny win with 10 eliminations and start to at least encourage people and give them hope that this will be a close competition of some sort, if they were to just come through and just win this game and completely shut up that whole narrative. Truly and Mr. Savage unfortunately go down, and once more we'll have to hit the drawing board.
Interesting shot right now, though. The way that everyone's trying to scale up the elevation. Eyedrop and Gonzo just trailing behind where Sky and Scroll were at. Teeny and Shark, though, they'll have the best seat in the house currently. Just looking down at everyone else trying to crawl their way up this mountain face and not really providing any sort of a safety net. Gotta be cautious, though. Gonzo has made his approach. Largely just wanted the positioning, but Sky and Scroll, only that one elimination so far. And Nebs and Nathan kind of playing a bit of spoiler early on. The Surge is seemingly a problem right now for these two.
But look at their positioning. They have access to dead side and they're able to just walk through. Look at all the congestion on the right of the zone. And Sky and Scroll, the only duo in the lobby on the left. Look at all the time they have to work with. They don't have to block off the angles. They don't have to do anything. There's nobody around to cause them issues. I always talk about how these guys, it just feels like whenever you watch them, they have more time than the rest of the lobby to play with. And this is a perfect showcase of that here. And in such a great position here on dead side, they can look to refarm, maximize their materials as they move into this endgame, where once again, it will be the same script. Dominate front side low ground, wipe out the solos, and win the game.
And while it's true that they did have more time than most, the build count still not looking the healthiest, though, to completely lock down that frontside position. It all depends on how much material was actually expended from so many other teams that had to actually work their way through that congestion on the mountain face. So surely ample teams still working with scraps here, but Scroll takes a big chunk out of his shield count. As now Shark and Teeny close in on Focus. It's a very solid elimination for these two to pick up, and they are still perched in a good spot. Potentially try and challenge for a height if they don't already have the best control of it so far, but Sky, Scroll, they need a refresh as Frosty and Josh, though, really making them work for it. Scroll has taken a bit of a beating here, but Sky immediately alleviating all of that pressure. A little bit of siphon materials, too, gonna go a long way for these two as they manage to circumvent the focus and pressure out of the congested areas in the lobby. They are ultimate low, and no one is anywhere near them.
Yeah, and look, who holds high ground? Asa and Turtle, they came second in the last game. They are a team that desperately is trying to force a comeback into a global championship qualifying position. Cammy, unfortunately, will get dropped. There is no room for error in this one. Teeny and Shark know that, though. And so they look to continue their aggression, use the momentum they have.
It's just so hard to tell, though, where these players are going to start dropping in on you from. Everyone just swooping in at the final seconds because of how heavily this elevation just shifts at a moment's notice here. But Teeny and Shark still doing a great job controlling the flow of the lobby for the most part, even with Asa and Turtle overhead. As long as they can avoid their direct view, they can still lock down this middle layer of front side. But Sky and Scroll, they'll definitely be a duo to try and size up to later on. Good chop right now out of Teeny and Shark. But Asa Turtle, even with them dropping, it's now just gonna be the open entry point that Shark and Teeny were waiting for. These two currently on the high ground, but they are going to need more if they want to try and hold on to it. They don't have a whole lot of builds up there as Sky and Scroll just continue to make their presence known on the low ground.
Yeah, some more players on this layer that they need to deal with. They found their refresh when they needed it before. Can they do it again? You'd have to think the answer will be yes. The zone starts to pull towards the north. It gives them a bit more time to try force this fight onto Electris. And the pressure will continue, but eventually you have to move. No materials left for Scroll. And Sky will have to drop what he has to offer. And again, for a second, they will just find a bit of breathing room, a bit of space to set up for that next fight.
But look at the angle, Sky knows it. High ground is looking directly at them, but they need the refreshes and they're going to manifest them every single time here, it seems. Sky and Scroll now just tearing through anyone who dares come near them on the low ground. With Shark Teeny still looking to see if they can replicate that Game 8 success. Sky goes up and immediately takes a whopping shot here. Sky and Scroll in the last 2v2, but it's actually going to be them who turn it around. You would think that Shark and Teeny are about to bring this one home, and just like that, Sky and Scroll have 180 the positioning. Another victory royale. This is getting ridiculous here, Frankie.
It is getting ridiculous, but it's also getting better and better. The action just keeps on coming. The twists, the turns. Having Sky and Scroll go head-to-head with their nearest rivals, Shark and Teeny, is just cinematic perfection, Mini Miner. And I expect to see more of that going to the next few games.
Wow, that was two of our top teams going head-to-head. We haven't really seen that too much throughout this weekend directly. But wow, how important could that moment be in terms of the momentum for Sky and Scroll? Maybe nipping it in the bud, if you like, for Shark and Teeny, because they were looking really good right there. But wow, Sky and Scroll. I mentioned it at the end of that last game. These guys are so good when they're, you know, stacked on mats, their front side, they're looking great. But when things aren't looking so great for them, like in this game, Levin mentioned it, they were sort of on their own, just on literally the other side of the map to the rest of the lobby. Taco mentioned it really nicely as well in the cast, that they didn't have all those materials. They needed to find refreshes. Right here, look at this, 4 bills in 8th zone. What is going on? And for a lot of teams, that would really throw them off. That would really make everything from there on out just crumble. But for Sky and Scroll, they seem to somehow always find these refreshes to Casa and then continue to make it happen. These guys seemingly, there's no faults, there's no holes, there's no chinks in their armor.
Yeah, absolutely not. It's incredible how well they play frontside low. Like, it is disgusting. I almost have to do a double take here in these final moments because, okay, Shark Teeny, yeah, you know, it's Sky Scroll, but Shark Teeny are high. Surely they win the game, right? Nope. Scroll somehow lands every single shot, takes out Shark after, and I was like, wait, hold on. Okay, my whole storyline thing has been messed up now. It's like, yeah, Shark Teeny's gonna win, but Sky Scroll's playing consistent, blah, 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 blah. It's not even getting to that because Sky and Scroll are looking so unstoppable.
I love how every single movement from them and every single act of aggression is so calculated. And that's why they don't make any mistakes, because they're constantly assessing every single rotation, every single interaction with their enemies on the map. And I can't wait to see more. So we'll see you guys in a few minutes to talk about what else went down in Game 9.
I got hit with that one off. I'm popping a med bit. Wait, short. Got 6 build? No, max up. Wait, if you're mid, wait. 100! 100! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Milk can help you grow. Milk can't prevent your ride from blasting into space.
There are just 3 more games of FNCS Europe's Major 2 Grand Final. So let's take a look at the Players in Focus powered by Milk to see who the big hitters in the lobby are. There's no prizes for guessing that Sky is absolutely dominating. And of course, Pablo's clutching incredibly mini minor.
Yeah, shall I take Sky, Takata? Yeah, he's top in eliminations, damage style, AR damage and damage ratio, of course, but just unreal the way that Sky is playing. We spoke a lot about these guys individually, so talented. Sky right now showing up, of course, throughout the weekend. And again, I suppose the fact that he's not in the solo clutch position right there, Takara, is a good thing because it just shows, it's like they're actually playing well as a duo, and Pablo isn't as well. So it's still impressive from him, though.
Right, arguably, like I was about to mention that. I was like, you know what? That's actually like he couldn't have played it out better in terms of the stats. It says players, you know, at the top, it's just player at this point. Sky's looking unstoppable.
Yeah, it's nice to see Scroll not being the solo points clutch leader. Clutch solo points, you know what I'm talking about, because if we were thinking back to Major 1, he probably would be there. Even Summit would probably be there. So it's a vast improvement from these guys. And I mean, they are looking unstoppable. The only people who could stop them are Sharkantini, but they're now 244 points behind. Yesterday, Sharkantini, they just didn't have the discipline, it felt like, to really pull off the games that they needed to until game 6. Is it too late now, Takata, is the question I have for you.
I mean, it's never too late in Fortnite, right? You don't know what could happen. We've seen early game devastations happen as tournaments concluded, but it's getting there, right? I mean, 622 points for Sky and Scroll. They have an average placement of 5.1. Sharkantini are behind them on that stat at 11.2, more than double their average placement. So they are just playing way too good for anyone to be close to them right now.
And honestly, Frankie, I think if you'd asked me that question and Sharkantini had won this game, I'd be like, nah, not too late. Look at them. They just wiped Sky and Scroll right here. They were on the high ground. They were dominating that end game. They put themselves in the position and took down the team ahead of them. The fact that Sky and Scroll still won that game, despite all the things going against them early on in the game, low on bills, needed refreshes, low ground in a zone that was all over the place in terms of hills, you have to just say that Sky and Scroll is taking this. But it's really nice to see Sharkantini come into their own here in day 2, because we all knew they were capable of it. It's actually nice to see them actually showing it now.
Well, iDrop and Gonzo currently in 3rd place and definitely looking like we're going to be seeing them in Belgium. So more Danish fans will be very happy tonight. And the thing about this duo is they have had some up and down moments. They've gone 3rd, 37th, and then 10th today to Carter. Can they keep the yo-yo in the air and make their way, well, solidify their place on the leaderboard? They're not probably going further, are they?
I think they can. They can hold their place for sure. I mean, their matches haven't been the best, but they've been significantly better from their matches that concluded yesterday. As a reminder, they kicked it off super strong, back-to-back 4th places, but then it was the polar opposite. Now today, I'm happy with how they're playing, honestly. I'm excited to see them qualify to globals if they continue this pace.
And Kami and Hari, again, another team that's trying to build back into things, find some stability. Unfortunate start today with the surprise contestation, but now we are seeing them make it off spawn, mini minor, and into the end games. I just feel like there's still opportunities they need to find to pop off even more.
Oh, for sure. And I think stability is the key word, really, because, of course, they were shaken at the beginning of the day. The stability that they had from day one was completely knocked. And now they're slowly starting to get back into things. This is exactly what they need to do. They need to maintain their position right now, try and break into maybe that top 3, because the top 2 right now is just looking so much further ahead. And I think they're a team that can do it. I think in a lot of these sort of lobbies and a lot of day 2 of Grands, we've sort of seen it with Cringe and Twy. There are teams that haven't been in this situation before. There are teams that aren't used to being up at this stage of the leaderboard. But for a team like Hari and Kami, they are. So they'll know how to conduct themselves now. They'll know what they need to do. And it's all just about execution.
Let's take a look at page 2 and see which teams are on the cusp of qualification for the Global Championships. Remember, there are 9 spots up for grabs,
wow.
and there are 9 duos in the lobby who've already qualified. Takata, big gasp from you. Why is that?
Look at the 16th through 14th. Honestly, just look at this whole page, okay?
Yeah.
There's 3 duos that have the exact same point range, and actually a number 16th is the current cutoff, I believe. So it is way too close for any of these duos to be comfortable in their qualification to globals right now.
Look at that, 30 points between 20th and 11th. That's the difference in a massive amount of prize money. That's the difference between globals and not. It's absolutely huge. And for teams like, you know, Pink and Haris there in 18th, moving up 6 places, really nice solo clutch from Pink there at the end. That's really what makes the difference. So each and every single game here on that second page of the leaderboard, things are going to change so much. I'm really excited to see how things change and really who's got what it takes now to qualify through the globals, because it is just that close.
There have been a couple of great length games for Pink and Haris recently. They found themselves in sticky situations with the likes of Vico and Malabuka lurking on them, biding their time in the storm, trying to get a cheeky elimination. And Pink and Haris were not giving anything up for free just a couple of games ago. Can they keep making it through? Because if they do, we will see them in Belgium. I'm not saying I'm biased or anything, but I'm clearly biased. We'd love to see them make it. There are so many duos currently in that contention. That 30 points is going to change as we go into game 10. Takata, who do you think has got what it takes to make it through to Antwerp?
Look, right below Pink on the leaderboard is Mr. Savage and Truly. Now, their last 2 matches have not been great, 26th, 28th, but they are just a couple placements off being in that qualifying range. So I want to see Savage and Truly step it up this second half of day 2.
Minnie?
Yeah, I completely agree. Although he's pandering to all the Savage fans out there, I completely agree with it. I want to see him, of course. Everyone wants to see them at LAN. I want to look at 21st. I'm looking at my other monitor here for the leaderboard. Size and Scary. What's happening to him?
What is happening?
Hello?
Well, we'll find out. We've got 3 more games, so let's get back into them. It's time for game 10.
Might need Takata to give those guys a pep talk or something, Levin, if they don't start kicking it up a notch here soon enough. Not only that, but this entire lobby also really hoping that Size and Scary can make their way into that top 18 section, because it would just make it all the easier for other duos to potentially get that qualification spot to Belgium.
Yeah, I mean, and that now really is the question, right? I think the first question we wanted to answer today is, who can beat Sky and Scroll? We don't have an answer for that one. Let's see if we can answer in our next game who will call for globals. Of course, if you are trying to qualify, you want to start to secure yourself in one of those spots and separate yourself from the bubble, because it is quite the bubble, Taco. So many different teams in the running to take one of those spots and represent Europe. Oh my goodness, what do we have here? Ping and Ghost have contested Sky and Scroll, and we've seen them in some high stakes off-spawn battles before, and it looks like this time around, Scroll will be the one to get the final elim and win things out. What a surprise that was.
But for Ping and Ghost to be the ones to try and do it, these guys must just be factoring in that they don't want to see a runaway competition. It's hard to tell, Levin.
My head is spinning right now. I have so many questions. Why are you anywhere near here? For what? I don't know what they were cooking up. If you decided you want to switch up your off-spawns, things haven't been working for you, which, again, it pretty much hasn't been for Ping and Ghost. Why contest Sky and Scroll? I mean, I know Summit's off-spawn didn't quite go their way, but let's take our minds back to Major 1 when they were in an off-spawn battle against Pablo and Chino, and they had the pixel-perfect drops. This isn't a team who are scrubs off-spawn by any means, and they showcased that there. Scroll does well to hold his nerve and keep their lead alive. Shark and Teeny, I'm sure they must have definitely, if they have anyone coaching them, letting them know, hey, you know, they almost went down off spawn, like, you almost had it. Let's make sure we have a good game here.
It's just certainly an interesting step to take for Ping and Ghost position. Still, fact of the matter is that late night off-spawn practice definitely paying off tenfold right now for Sky and Scroll, and the fact that they were able to come out on top here. Ari and Cammy, though, they've been surprised one time already, and this time it's going to be Haris and Pink who catch them off guard over at their off-spawn point, but this is a tough break.
Yeah, and Pink and Haris are one of those bubble teams, a team who a couple good games now would do enough to send them to the Global Championships, and what that would mean for Pink, I mean, it's been a long time since he has touched the land. Haris is a player as well we have not seen in such a long time, and so these are players who desperately want to make this work, and when that desperation kicks in, Tackle, you start to do anything in your power. That's where you start to whip out all of the secret strats you've been holding on to. Little tactics figured out in scrim sessions that you wanted to save for a big moment have to come out now.
For Lyrics and Maldives, they've certainly got a tall task in front of them of trying to deal with the likes of Vico and Malabuka. They're just playing, fully understanding qualification for Belgium. They've already secured that. They are our Summit champions after all, but this has definitely not been the grand performance that they would have initially intended for. That's why we see them just trying to take things up another level here. They've already got one elimination. Looking for additional pair on Lyrics and Maldives will be the first one brought down by Vico. Malabuka still looking to try and close things out, but he might get turned on if he's not careful. Lyrics dodges he might. It's going to be it out, but it's the third-party intervention here now to ultimately play spoiler. Vico and Malabuka, but it initially seemed like it'd be a lock. Axforce and Bevies have just decided, you know what? This actually looks like a comeback opportunity here. If we can find any sort of a catalyst, it's like you said, Levin, teams using every single trick left up their sleeves right now to try and put themselves in a better position to make it into that bubble, to make it in to the qualification section for Globals. And Vico, try as he might, won't be able to get away. Axforce and Bevies just get the upper hand on this one.
Yeah, and Axforce and Bevies, again, a team that has had sort of a roller coaster of a competition. Ups and downs, a couple more downs and ups, you'd have to say. But a big win in this fight. And hopefully they can snowball that into a big game here.
I know that we're seeing Medius lighting up that elimination feed for a moment. Watching iDrop and Gonzo. I'll opt for the teleporter. Whether they choose to camp it out, though, we'll have to wait and see. But there are a lot of teams that are still seeking out that Global's qual spot. And I know one that everyone in the EU region would certainly love to see would be savage and truly. But again, today has just been so lackluster. And they've got to start and build any semblance of rhythm here between the two. Just one solid game, Levin. That is realistically all it would take for these two to get a little bit of a buffer zone here. But the desk already highlighted it. That leaderboard, 11th through 20th, when only 30 placement points are really separating that many different competitors, it just gets so dicey. You don't want to overthink it, but you also don't want to find yourself in a position where you're hesitating. And that's where Savage's experience could show up.
I think one thing we've seen in Grands over the years is there's always teams who really just struggle with the changes all across the lobby on day twos, right? Changes when it comes to your surge strategy, changes when it comes to what teams are landing around you or on you, as we've seen in some of these games. And I think so far these guys have been dealing with that the worst of a lot of the better teams we've seen today. I'd be curious to look at just a session leaderboard for just today and where they stack up on it. I can't imagine it looks too good.
Well, might get a chance to dive a little bit deeper into that later on. For right now, Sinister Strip, Sky and Scroll, they've left Frosted Flats. And you have to remember, even though they succeeded with the off spawn, they did take a good chunk of return damage, so the Surge not necessarily fully in their favor just yet. They're just caking out some space right now, but Chino, Pablo, with this being their starting point, very likely they're not going to be big fans of Sky and Scroll choosing to make themselves feel at home.
Don't think it matters over there, fan of it. Not much they can do about it.
Fairs. Sometimes that's all that can be said for these teams, but one duo that has been particularly exciting, Fat and Leches. Largely just because, Levin, they've done a great job in today's competition. When we're talking about teams that haven't necessarily done the best in making those adjustments to day two, this is one that has certainly delivered so far. And with back-to-back fourth placements, it has helped them out tremendously with finding very solid footing in terms of getting that placement metric for the Belgium qualification spot. And they keep up the pace, if they can just continue replicating the success that they've already started with, they'll definitely find themselves nestling into that Belgium's battle bus in no time whatsoever. But for Cammy, Hari, Pink, and Haris, they might have just been the dagger for this duo. Dandy Puzo and Azat gonna further punish Cammy. No real ability to escape here. Hari is left off somewhere else entirely, but it is just a daunting task to sit and hide, hope that you're not seen. Just crouched around. Pink and Haris have just got him completely cut off. Just nowhere left to really run.
And the problem is he doesn't want to whip out his shotgun because it's going to make a sound cue. So he's forced to just hold the mini out until they make the play. And then he'll have to switch, and doesn't have much HP. Can't pop the mini because that's going to make sound. I don't think they know he's here. It's not an easy spot for him to get out of, yeah. Just rotating away, and that works out nicely for Hari, especially because of the storm coming in. That HP was dwindling. He desperately needed to get access to that vending machine. And so things will work out for him there.
But even if he makes another play for the reboot, even if he brings Cammy back into this one, they are going to spend so much time inside of the storm in comparison to a lot of other competitors in this lobby. That storm sickness is very likely going to be an issue for them later on. And that's if they even make it to that stage, right? Actually pulling off a successful endgame performance from the cards that they've been dealt in game number 10. It's going to be very rough as Teeny Shark, one more time, getting a little bit more damage than what they were actually able to dish out. But that's not to say that they haven't been able to do their part
Yeah, that last game, I think, was a real pivotal moment. That final 2v2, I think, is one that will be remembered in EU FNCS history for many years to come. Because that really felt like the turning moment. If you're Teeny and Shark, you have your global spot solidified. All that matters to you is trying to get this first FNCS championship. Teeny has come so close many times before. Shark needs that chip, the validation that his talent can amount to wins and success. But to lose that 2v2 and lose the game, it's so symbolic to just how dominant Sky and Skrull are.
They're just not leaving any sort of room for error. But it could also be a bit of a motivational factor here for Shark and Teeny. If they're still able to somehow, some way catch up and potentially overtake Sky and Skrull, that would definitely, it would just say so much in terms of what they're able to actually do on the biggest stages. But for Sky and Skrull right now, ball's in their court. They haven't really feel any sort of pressure outside of the initial off spawn.
And we're in, the double-digit games now, right? And with this type of a lead, you've got to think, another big game here, and if Shark and Teeny can't deliver a big game to match them, that's really where you have to start saying sayonara and allow them to waltz into the sunset. But hopefully that doesn't happen, because we like some drama. We like to be kept on our toes. There is still plenty of drama though, because so many of these teams in positions to qualify for globals. Velo and Zynox currently one of those teams in a position to qualify. But one of those teams who, again, if they don't fix up in these last 2 games, or 3 games, including this one, obviously, then they could very easily fall out of that position, Taco, and be watching the Global Championships just like the rest of us.
And it's always easier said than done, right? You would think that it's just going to be a done deal when you've already found yourself overcoming a lot of those troubles in day 1, and then a whole new slew of them just being introduced on day 2. But Chino, Pablo, might be getting a little bit active here. Sky and Skrull now feeling some pressure, currently underneath search threshold, but not by much. Still, if they are going to take an engagement, Pablo and Chino might just be one of the worst teams they could be having to match up against, because we know just how potent they are as fighters. And not only that, but if they feel like they've got any signs of weakness out of Sky and Skrull in that box fight, you could expect that they're going to continue trying to press that issue and ensure they find an overall win. So Sky Skrull, they're trying to see if they can get their damage elsewhere first. They're gonna look to get some shots in at some of these teams that are trickling in from the edge of zone. Search just continues to work against them. And the time that they have to spend healing, Levin, it's time, seconds lost, that they could be trying to apply damage instead.
Not had the chance of watching these guys get ticked by Surge much today, or at all this weekend. But do not adjust your screens. This is real. Sky and Skrull are down below and are struggling to find the damage needed to keep them in this game. And opportunities don't feel aplenty right now. They miss out on a pivotal couple of teams there. iDrop and Gonzo, as they rotated, that is one of the options they needed. Skrull leaves himself too exposed, and that puts Sky even further down below now. And you've got to think this is going to be the end of the road here in game number 10 for Sky and Skrull. They are human.
It's crazy to think that even gods can bleed at times after all, but Sky and Skrull now will have to sit and wait to see how Shark and Teeny actually fare. And with that elimination onto Cammy, we know what kind of struggles Cammy's been dealing with.
And the implications of this now are huge. Because obviously this game started off with the shock, surprise contestation from Ping and Ghost. If just them being contested, even when they win, leads to struggling games like that, is that what the rest of this competition is gonna hold for them? Do Ping and Ghost continue to try and fight them off spawn? What happens when Ping and Ghost win the battle? And now there's even more of an opportunity for Shark and Teeny to try and catch up.
What if it's not just Ping and Ghost? That's the other issue too that now starts to be introduced into the mix, because we know that Ping and Ghost are willing to take that chance, but other duos, maybe even some of our leading contenders, now potentially wondering if that might be an option that steadily opened itself up to them. Still Savage and Truly scoping back in the grand scheme of things for lobby number 10. A very awkward position right now. Almost 200 underneath that surge entirely, and not only that, but practically fully out of any sort of utility. Savage will use the last of his Chug Jug. They're gonna have to rotate eventually, 11, and they're gonna be rotating directly in so many different duos' line of sights. That's why they're trying to get the damage before they make their way across, and they have managed to just catapult themselves over now, 196 above, but still in such grim circumstances. And they're not the only ones. Ping also struggling currently, despite starting off with that off-spawn surprise. It hasn't actually netted them any favors in the long run here. And now Truly Savage still looking to see if they can have some form of a breakthrough, but Yanis and Brax, they're the ones who are actually desperately in need of another fight. Surge does manage to tick in their favor, but it works against Savage and Truly at the exact same time.
Yeah, and this really puts them in a bad position moving forward. I mean, not only the need for the extra damage, of course, just 4 players needing to drop, but the lack of materials, the lack of shields, and the poor timing ultimately is a recipe for failure. Shark and Teeny will continue their trek towards catching up to Sky and Scroll. And now there is hope for them in this game.
They've got decent builds too. Every little bit of damage. It's largely going to be the elimination points that I think these two are after. Unfortunately, Shark blocked there momentarily on the rotate, but won't deter them too heavily. Pixovsky and Saren also trying to do what they can just to keep their heads above water. They don't want to sink just yet, but Pixovsky forced to drop as a solo. He'll have no other options but to try and get a little bit of surprise play, crouching around some of these lower layers. Truly very similar category. Just hoping that he can get the opening shot he needs. Depending exclusively on a refresh here is just such a fickle position to be in. And working in also from the backside of the zone, you know that there's going to be so many pre-established teams lying in front of you. Somehow, some way though, neither Truly or Pixovsky has encountered anyone just yet. No one looking down, but that could change. A couple seconds here. Sure enough though, Truly able to create just a little bit more space. Hasn't run out of materials entirely just yet. Same sort of circumstances too for Pixovsky. We are watching 2 separate solos just doing everything in their power to squeeze out every little bit of placement, but Truly scouted it out. It's a healthy duo right next to him. He'll have to get a move on, overdrive forward. Doesn't care where it sends him as long as it's away from those two. And he can keep this one rolling forward.
And you can see in the rest of the lobby, many of our global championships qualified teams having a bit of fun, finally finding their groove in this lobby and strutting their stuff. Thomas and Focus, it's been some time since we've seen them on height. But finally, another opportunity for this duo to continue to cement themselves high up in the standings, while down below, so many more of our talented duos fight for a chance to compete in Antwerp. Teeny and Shark drop down and looking very weak. Taco, not many options, and so they're gonna have to get to work with their shotguns.
Not only that, but they're also trying to evade high ground, but just like that, Teeny finds Mean Joe a little bit too preoccupied with what was directly in front of him. That is a big opener for Shark and Teeny. That's Siphon helping out Teeny tremendously here, but even still, Shark incredibly weak, still trying to break through. The Woodbills just making it through in the nick of time, but with Shark just on his last legs here. They're gonna have to try and convert yet another elimination, but it's Shark who gets brought down. Darkos and Minori a bit too healthy to contend with here, and they know they've got a body rolling around behind them. Whether or not Teeny's gonna let them actually get to it, though, is another conversation entirely, because they're trying to just match pace with the rest of the lobby. They're trying to stick towards frontside, and Teeny has managed to stay one layer above, but still, Levin, he needs so much more to try and pull out a strong placement.
And Teeny has been the key to this duo's success. And one more time, he takes up the mantle to try and clutch up Solo. Gets dropped down as Dom looks to do the same for his duo. Plenty of materials to just keep him ticking in this game that much longer. But there will be duos hunting and fighting for him. He doesn't mind though. Twek will jump into his box and he will handle it swiftly. Chap with 8 now. He's really trying to fight for a position to qualify. None of these teams, none of these players want to let this slip.
Crazy though, just how many solos are actually left over here. Chap with another one onto Minori. Can he get the siphon? No! Darko's gonna shut that one down and pay the ultimate price. He's been eliminated, but Izzy, Nosip, one of the few lobby teams actually as a duo still trying to contend up against the likes of Darm, who's gonna get Nosip in the process. Focus now dropping Agent of Chaos. He wants to confirm this victory royale for himself and Thomas. They've been needing a big bounce back game here on day 2, and they might just be able to find it. Focus, Thomas still skirting around, just waiting. Both of them so limited on materials in comparison to Darm. He might actually have the firepower to do this, but the shots overhead from Thomas are going to get the job done. Darm is just so incredibly weak. He won't have an opportunity to heal, not with 2 separate players aggressing on his floors just like this. And Thomas' focus incredibly low, but it doesn't matter. Thomas will make sure to cement a victory royale in their favor.
Dom did his absolute best, but Thomas and Focus from above, dropping down below, will get their 2nd win of the competition.
Thank you so much, guys. Focus and Thomas, they've been pretty dependable in the lobby so far, but it's great to see them pop up and get a 2nd victory royale. Mini Minor.
Yeah, great to see. I mean, they just need a zone, you know? It's like, that's finally, we're going to get a South zone sort of. They've only had a couple this weekend, and finally they've actually made it work right there, taking high. Only a couple of eliminations as well, but it's exactly what this team needs. Should be boosting them up in the standings as well, because they weren't even sort of that far down to Carter going into that game, so it's going to do them a world of good, and their confidence a world of good as well.
Yeah, they've actually done quite well today. Yesterday, they ended in 15th place, and I think they're 7th place going into this last match. So after that win, they're going to be jumping up even higher. They got eliminations, 8 eliminations in the game before this, and as we saw this time around, they weren't as frag heavy, but they still got the VR, which is more than enough. So I'm honestly very happy to see this.
I love the way they took high there as well, taking down Swizzy and Pixie, and I think they benefited from the fact that, of course, Shark and Teeny went down a lot earlier in that game. They were a little bit scuffed. Of course, Sky and Scroll down a lot earlier than expected in that game as well, but they needed to step up and take the plate right there, which they did, of course, as well. And I think, again, it's just been a bit of a what could have been grand finals from Thomas HD. It's like, yeah, we talk about zones, but even still, it's like, this has happened last season, it's happened last major, and they couldn't quite make it happen. So it's like, I really wanted to see a lot more from these guys, which they can still give us here in these last 2 games, but they've just shown how much they've got in the tank in that last game.
Well, it was a shocker for our top 2 duos. We're talking about what happened to Sky and Scroll and Shark and Teeny after the break.
I got here. I'm popping med bit. Wait, short. Got 6 builds? No, max up. Wait, if you are med, wait. 100! 100! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Milk can help you grow. Milk can't prevent your ride from blasting into space.
We've only got 2 games left of the FNCS Europe Major 2 Grand Finals, guys. I'm not going to get sad about it right now. I'm just going to savor the moment because that could have been a highly impactful game for Shark and Teeny because Sky and Scroll, they managed to divide that off-spawn situation we saw versus Ping and Ghost. And we'll talk about what happened afterwards because Takata talked me through this.
It was scary. It got me nervous. I was not fully expecting this, but in the back of my mind, I kind of was, okay? The issue is, from this off spawn, they did come out on top. Shark and Teeny didn't get a big game, so it hasn't changed too much, but Mini, I am scared for what's to come.
Well, that's the thing. These guys got contested off spawn. Of course, all that off spawn practice last night would have paid off for them. Not that they necessarily need it. They're so good off spawn anyway. But really weird, actually, because they went down then, of course, what was it, like 30 seconds, something like that, to Surge, which we haven't seen them but get hit by Surge at all throughout this entire weekend until that very last game. And the reason that's confused is, like, you got all that damage off spawn. You, of course, won the off spawn battle. Why not just play exactly the same way with that extra bonus of Surge? Not too sure exactly what went wrong for them, but they just couldn't handle it. So the first real time that, even though they had a bad game yesterday, the first time they've had a really bad game in this entire weekend.
Mini, is that just like a net Surge issue with one of them going down?
Potentially a net Surge issue, potentially the fact the zone was really far, of course, as well, set them back a little bit from their early game. They couldn't quite loot as quickly as they would, but a little bit concerning for them because, of course, they did win that off spawn. It did throw them off massively throughout the rest of the game, potentially as well. So a little bit concerning for these guys, but of course it's Sky Scroll.
Yeah, it was an 8-point game for Sky and Scroll. Yesterday, their lowest game was 19th. Today, 32nd. But Shark and Teeny, this was a massive opportunity for them to potentially take the lead for the first time. Instead, they had to settle for just outside the top 10 mini-minor. If I was them, I'd be kicking myself.
Such an opportunity missed, realistically. They needed another one of those big games, which is exactly what they've been having all day. It's their first bad game of the day, realistically, as well. And there was a couple of moments here. They were looking for a lot of that damage. They found it. Things were looking okay. They needed a refresh. Then Teeny got it to Carter, had that chug jug as well. I think it was sort of one of these moments here when they needed that refresh. And they just about almost did enough. And it was this one right here, wasn't it, where they got that elimination. Everything was looking great. You think this is the catalyst for their game. And it almost started to crumble from here. They were late to every rotate, couldn't get the health. Chart went down here, and it all sort of fall apart.
Yeah, it wasn't even a terrible match. Like 11th place with 5 eliminations. That's a pretty good match, but they needed it to be a very big one. As you can see, the gap from first to second is still quite strong.
Is it odd, though, that Teeny left Shark behind there rather than trying to help him out with a heal there?
No, I mean, they were both on the wall. It was just a bit of unfortunate events prior to that that kind of led to them going down.
Well, you can see that after that victory royale, Focus and Thomas have climbed up to 3rd place. And if we take a look, Dom and Demas, after that monster game from Darn, they have gone into the top 10, I think for the first time this weekend, because they were nearly out of the top 20 before the game, Mini Minor. Fantastic performance from this in-game leader.
Yeah, really struggle yesterday, I suppose, in those sort of off-spawn battles. They had a few really bad games. Today, they've really started to come alive again as well. And it seems to me it's very similar to sort of the Pablo Chino situation, where when they do make it to these end games, they're looking so strong. Dom here, unbelievable solo clutch himself, getting all these incredible frags, getting 2nd place there at the end. But it's like, imagine if these guys could make it consistently as well to the end game. You never know what could happen.
Oh my god, yeah, I was looking at the leaderboard and I was like, oh, they had 9 eliminations. Okay, no, Darn had 9 eliminations. Looking like he completely woke up. If he had more HP and shield, maybe the 1v2 could have been completed. But either way, happy for Thomas and Focus for taking that game home.
I think that Dom and Demas are very much about confidence, and I think they need those big moments in order to gain that momentum and carry that forward. And I think having seen Dom do that, and to do that as a solo for a considerable amount of time, to pick up all those eliminations, I think that's going to be really motivating them going to the next 2 games. So let's keep our eyes on them. Let's take a look at the 2nd page, because we have so many duos who've already qualified within the top 18. It's only Size and Scary who are currently outside of it, which means for all the duos on this page, Mini Minor, it's very exciting. I mean, Savage and Truly, they're currently on the line for qualification just outside it right now. And Chap and Flixie, they have already qualified, but it's great to see them having a resurgence in their performance.
Yeah, remember we looked at the 2nd page going into the last game, and it was only a 30-point difference between 11th and 20th. Now that's more like 90-point difference, which is absolutely crazy to see when you look at the difference in it now. So that gap is widening between this page of the leaderboard. So it's even more important now for the teams like Mr. Savage and Truly, for teams like Cringe and Volker, who are just outside of it, to really now make the most of these last 2 games. Because if they want to find themselves the globals, this is when it really counts here for them.
Very quickly, guys, can I ask you about Vico Malabuka? Because this is our reigning Summit Championship duo, and yet we're not really seeing that concrete of a game plan from them, I feel like, Takata. We're seeing them jumping all over the lobby, just trying to find their footing and not really finding what they need to get the job done.
Early game struggles is what we're seeing in the most recent matches. 45th, 42nd. Yesterday, they were getting closer to the end games, but overall this weekend, it's not really what we would expect from, being Summit champions.
Well, you know what? We know they come alive on LAN, and we know that they've already qualified for the Global Championships, but not all of our duos tonight have. So these 2 games that are coming up mean everything. Let's get into game 11.
Who is it gonna be securing their spot at the Global Championships, representing themselves, representing Europe against the rest of the world, Taco?
Well, one thing's for sure, Liv. I wanted to actually address the elephant in the room, because we saw Sky Scroll get contested off spawn, and those guys are they're definitely leading the charge in terms of leaderboard, but there are just so many teams that could potentially look to try and switch that up, maybe help out Sharkatini. Hard to say, but I know one thing's for sure. Game 11 underway.
Once more, we will have our eyes peeled here at Frosted Flats. Will Sky and Scroll be gliding in alone, or will there be other duos here to spoil the party? Right now, we see Sky, we see Scroll, we see Ping, we see Ghost, and there's even more names added to the party this time around, Taco.
It's just very interesting strategies from these teams that are not near that section of the leaderboard for consistency, but finding it out amongst each other now. In fact, might have even been able to give a helping hand for Sky and Scroll. It's 2 separate duos with very early departures. Sky, 2 eliminations, and a little bit of surge damage, only this time they didn't have to take any in return.
Yeah, and so now we might get to see the opposite of what this off-spawn can look like for them, where it spirals into a very successful game. They will deal with the off-spawn disturbance swiftly. And unfortunately for those two teams, not much they can do to affect our Major 1 champs. Both of those teams in the bottom half of the leaderboard, 46th and 47th respectively. And more than likely now, no chance of qualifying for the Global Championships. Across the lobby, we see a lot of our different teams who still are within a shot when it comes to qualifying for the Global Championship. Of course, the biggest fan favorite, Mr. Savage, the one everybody wants to see make it. And here in Game 11, starts off as a solo, needing to pick Truly back up.
That's the problem, right? Bimbo and Radeon just having Savage on the run currently. He's going to have to spend so much more time just hiding out before he can realistically try and go for any sort of reboot options. And that setback, when today has just been a series of setbacks for Savage and Truly. It started off the day around that 10th place position on the leaderboard, and with every single match that goes by, find themselves sinking 1, 2 placements ever lower. Meanwhile, competition like Pink and Haris trying to do what they can. They've had some fluctuations, but still ultimately find themselves just on the cusp. They need big performances here. And an early game, surprise, Osbon contention aside, even if that goes your way, there's just so much more of the game left to play and contend with, and that's really where a lot of the issues have been popping up for these teams, because Surge has just been all over the place for a lot of these duos.
Yeah, it's been a very difficult final for plenty of these teams, but plenty of lessons to be taken moving forward. It's been weird because I think obviously where our focus is on the excellence and the honestly just unbelievable levels of consistency from Sky and Skrull. A lot of these different teams have showed in here, games here and there that they still have plenty to offer when it comes to competing with the best of them in EU. But the reality is, as long as Sky and Skrull exist, you're gonna have to be able to do it consistently if you have any hope. Rax and Janice sitting 14th coming into this game, and they're a duo that many will be hoping can do enough just to hold on and get the job done.
It's been promising at times for Rax and Yanis, but obviously Yanis sort of investing into Fortnite future here alongside of Rax, and they're trying to gauge whether or not they can continue just building up on their current placement.
And Janice is someone who has obviously a very storied past. One of the all-time greats here in the EU, many different FNCS championships in multiple modes. One of the few players to win in trios, duos, and a solo. But also a player who is known for his ability to pick out some of the best talents many people might have forgotten. Janice was one of the first people to really give Pixius opportunity to showcase what he could do at LAN. And now looking to do the same here for the young, talented Rax.
This is getting weird now at Frosted Flats. Shark and Teeny have gone a long ways from Calamari Canyon, but first we'll have to deal with Godoy and Polo. Teeny, Shark tag team effort has led to one elimination so far, but Sky and Skrull not too far away. Shark trying to see if he can still be hot in pursuit here to take down Polo. They want to make sure that they have a clear avenue of approach when trying to deal with the likes of Sky and Skrull, but the fact of the matter is, if they were sneaking about here trying to get a surprise play off on Sky and Skrull, Goihoy and Polo have completely ruined it. Sky and Skrull definitely going to be on red alert here. And I was going to ask you earlier on when we first checked in with Shark and Teeny, Levin, was it a missed opportunity for these two to not initially go for that immediate Ospawn fight? But seems like that question's been answered because they've opted to still take the matter into their own hands. They are diving in against Skrull. And Shark trying to be one of the first back into the box here. Skrull just so weak, he needs some backup, but Sky a little bit stuck here. They're trying to work their way up, but Skrull, he's gonna need some help here.
This is monumental. Shark and Teeny, they lost in the final 2v2 a couple games ago, and they've decided they don't want to lose anymore. They're taking the fight to Sky and Skrull, and they know it's them. You can't miss them. This base at Frosted Flats is a big sign, a big flag to say, hey, it's us. And Shark and Teeny, they know they can't maybe play as perfect Fortnite as Sky and Skrull do, but what they certainly can is beat them in a 2v2 box fight, and that is where the urgency comes from. Sky and Skrull will look to create some space, and they'll look to separate, stop a fight from breaking out. But even if Teeny and Shark don't quite get the damage, don't quite get their limbs tackled, you could argue the damage has maybe been done. Think about all the materials Sky and Skrull have had to invest in this one to stay up. Think about the timing and the opportunity lost when it comes to surge damage. This right here could just be enough to rock the boat and give Shark and Teeny that opening that they need.
Also thinking about how many times have we seen Sky and Skrull just already rotated into the perfect position when we approach those endgame circumstances, but with Shark and Teeny here, that's just not going to be an option. They are going to have to deal with these two one way or another, and the conclusion might not be one that they're hoping for, but for Shark and Teeny, they know exactly what is at stake. This would be the game to turn things around. If they are able to convert this fight into a pair of eliminations on Sky and Skrull, and then potentially even look for a solid endgame performance, they're gonna need the victory roll after the fact. It starts with taking out Sky and Skrull. It continues with Shark and Teeny, then having to contend with the rest of the lobby.
In Major 1, Chino and Pablo chose game number 11 as their opportunity to strike. And here in Major 2, Shark and Teeny do the same. They realize that they need the extra game buffer to give themselves the best chance. But it's not going to be easy. Sky and Skrull never make things easy. And so this stalemate will continue. Will they get impatient and leave? Or will somebody make a mistake that costs their duo an FNCS title?
This is really starting to look like a battle of attrition, though. When you think about it, Sky, Skrull, they haven't necessarily had the time that they would have preferred to really farm up the material count, and it's the same position for Shark and Teeny because they had to get a move on. They had to hustle to be in this position in the first place to challenge Sky and Skrull. And now the rest of the lobby also closing in. More teams being drawn to this position because of the way that the zone is pooling. Frosted Flats smack dab in the center of it all. Sky, Skrull, they want to separate, but Shark and Teeny, they don't want to permit. And instead, it's going to be Shark and Teeny creating a little bit more distance than what they bargained for. Potentially even Teeny trying to go for a bit of a fake out here, because now he's going to reunite one more time alongside Shark and just continue to try and hold out, try and find the opening angles that will net them an advantage against the likes of Sky and Skrull. These two, they realize it's not going to be an option.
What a great overdrive nade from Skrull. Completely fakes Teeny out. And they take enough damage to where they realize if there's any hope for them in this game, they need to dip out and recover this game. Again, when we talk about Sky and Skrull doing things and playing things perfectly, that was the best play they could have made. Psychologically, it just puts the pressure once again on Shark and Teeny, and now their game is spiraling out of control. The investment has not paid its dividends. Shark and Teeny now on bare bones. And what was a play that was started with the intentioning of ending the run of Sky and Skrull might just be what ends the run of Teeny and Shark here.
To make matters worse still, it's Godoy and Polo of all teams that are now circling back. We saw what Shark and Teeny had started with those two. They had forced Godoy out of the vicinity, and yet now they're a little bit stuck in the thick of it. They're not really able to find a way to squeeze themselves out of here, and they need material desperately. It might even be a fight that they're forced to take despite being on fumes here. The options are just so limited right now in comparison to Sky and Scroll, who have just managed to evade all of that chaos because of holding off Shark and Teeny for as long as they did. You have to respect the gall there, though, from Shark and Teeny, though. They made the attempt.
Absolutely, props to them. At every opportunity, Tackle, we've tried to almost write them off and say, look, Sky and Scroll have got the win. FNCS is over. Let's focus on the global qualified teams. Shark and Teeny say, no, we ain't done fighting. And even if it hasn't paid off, like you said, you have to give them props for the attempt. And one thing I think we can probably say with some confidence is that they won't just go down and roll over. They will keep kicking and keep making a fuss until Sky and Scroll are forced to do something about it. But things now cooling off between the two, Teeny and Shark. When you take away the plays that they made and the context of them trying to take down the team in their way for an FNCS, when you take that all away and just look at their situation right now in this game, Taco, it looks horrible. 3 builds for Teeny, not much more for Shark, and way down below on Surge.
Their loadouts just look like a duo that has been playing reboot after reboot so far in Game 11, and yet that's just not the case. But ultimately, Shark and Teeny, still hard to rule them out. We know just how quickly they can turn a fight into their favor. But for Sky and Scroll, potentially even looking on for some of the action that's about to ensue here, Shark, Teeny, their tourney standings on the line here. If they go down before placement really even begins to factor in, Sky and Scroll are going to be left largely uncontested. They very likely just see themselves as tournament winners here, but Shark, Teeny desperately trying to see whether or not they can bring down Pixie, Swizzy, both of them just narrowly managing to skirt around, but they run directly into where Dinas is at, and now Teeny, Shark trying to come alive here, but they found themselves a bit pincered now. Teeny has fallen, Surge ticking away at what HP is left here, and Shark forced to fall back, but 519 below. There's only so much left to be done in this type of circumstance, and for Shark, it's just too tall of a task, too big of an ask even, for him to seriously try and overcome it. Damage options just drawing further and further away from him. Swizzy and Pixie, they've managed to evade Shark and Teeny, but for Sky and Scroll, there is no one left in sight to catch them.
Wow. The game's not even done, Taco, but what a game so far. I mean, this is what it's all about. Sky and Scroll now have the opportunity to really try and shut Shark and Teeny up for good. I think the funny thing about this game becomes no matter what Sky and Scroll do here, they have to know. Next game, Frosted Flat is not safe. No, they better have someone prepping another drop spot for them for the final game. They should not go anywhere near that spot. But let's see what they cook up here in game number 11. Let's see if they can add to their lead and mitigate any potential game 12 off-spawn shenanigans. Of course, they also have had quite a tough time trying to make up for the lost time after that Shark and Teeny stalemate. But they've done a better job of recovering the game here, Taco.
And, you know, for as heartbreaking as that defeat was for Sky and Scroll at Summit, can't help but think that that might have just been the missing piece for those two. The level up that they have experienced from having been in that type of position, and now realizing just how they can match up to the pressure here in the Major 2 Grand Finals. But there are other teams still looking for other prizes, one of them being that Global's position. And for Truly and Savage, they have really had to try and dig their way out of the trenches here right now. Bimbo and Radion just hounding them for the most part, but Savage and Truly still getting just enough damage done, but they're going to need so much more than that. They want to stay in contention. 73 below now. Savage forced to pause, forced to utilize some of their healing resources. Got to get his shield back up to a level where he won't be immediately dropped on their next rotation, but Truly knows their options are so limited. They try to catch off guard Cammy and Hari, but it's going to be no use. Cammy, Hari immediately separate, and now Truly desperately trying to find any form of damage. Savage has already fallen though, and Truly, he has to get an elimination.
Truly, he's done so well as a solo throughout this season, but unfortunately will meet his end. And that puts so much pressure on that final game now for that duo. But there are plenty other duos in a similar boat. Pink and Haris, they will not be fearful as they have such a big opportunity in this final game, or these final 2 games here, to make something happen. Jewel needs to do his best because he currently sits in a global spot and he doesn't want to jeopardize that. As a solo, can't make it work.
Forcefully ejected from the lobby, but still has game 12 to work with to try and defend that position on the leaderboard. Velo and Zynox, another team in a similar position. Only they are running very low on their build count. We saw Rax and Yanis just moments ago holding down a little bit of a low ground position. Now they've gone all the way up. Big point of elevation here. Solid material counts too. The loadouts definitely looking fairly healthy in comparison to a lot of the other teams that we've hovered over. But for Sky and Scroll, every single time they secure an elimination, Shark and Teeny, you'd imagine their stomachs just gutted feelings because they are only continuing to create an even bigger gap. They are looking for being the back-to-back Axe of Champion wielders, and they might just do it depending on how this Game 11 plays out for them. For right here, right now, Cringe, Volko doing everything they can to keep just breaking through some of these more congested areas. Venus and Fnatic, they won't be able to overcome the wall that is Sky and Scroll. That is dropped by Nathan. And even as a solo, it doesn't make a difference because every single one of these players looking for that separating moment that give them every single bit of placement points, every single bit of elimination points. Velo and Zynox diving right in, but bit off a little bit more than they could chew here. Wi-Fi and Boris were ready to punch back.
Yeah, that leaves Velo in such a tough spot. With all the focus on the first and how impressive they've been, so many of our teams fighting for globals, having struggles, and so many of those teams in the bubble might just be able to make it burst as we go into this final game. Here in this endgame though, Sky and Scroll are still looking for that win condition. They want to add to the tally. They want to make it for another win.
And they've already got that front side low control. Raxianis, they might be in a position where they're going to look to drop again, but from where we last saw Sky and Scroll at, and the way that this elevation has shifted, they are just looking to pick apart any sort of stragglers that come anywhere near their turf here. Spello still trying to do what he can to wrap around. Has gone unsighted for the time being, but Sky and Scroll, it feels like they might be doing the victory lap early here in Game 11. Because one more elimination onto Yanis. 4 already. Ample amounts of material now being picked up here. The medkits going to certainly help out aplenty. Sky, Scroll, now looking to try and reunite. Velo, Tango, Wing, and Boris and Wi-Fi, but they'll find yet another elimination there. Sky and Scroll, though, looking back. Hari, Cammy, trying to make a resurgence. today has not been theirs for the taking, but they're still looking to see whether or not Game 11 could possibly go in their favor.
How do they keep doing it? Scroll should have been taken out ages ago, but it leaves Sky as a solo to continue to add points to the tally. And he has done it so many times here in this major for this duo. Whether it's major 1, Sky clutching up, major 2, Sky will do it again. So many valuable points on the board. But for Hutty and Fishy, this is a much needed opportunity at a win. But they have to be careful because Hari will never make it easy. The Storm will get the job done. Hutty and Fishy take game number 11.
It's a duo that we haven't had much opportunity to talk about throughout the course of this weekend so far, but coming alive in the final hour, better late than never after all. Wouldn't you say, Frankie?
Absolutely. Better late than never, but will it make much of a dent in the leaderboard? I am not so sure, but congratulations to Hutty and Fishy for claiming that victory royale. However, we have to admit that all eyes were on the low ground because we wanted to see if Sky and Scroll could do it yet again. They could have had a catastrophic early game, but they managed to come through again. We'll be talking in detail about their game after the break. But before then, let's talk about Hutty and Fishy. Takata, this is a team that's had many lows this weekend, so it's great to see them on a high.
Yeah, I'm trying to even find where they were. This was 36th place going into this match. Just not a good weekend coming from these two. They were surprise contested last minute day 1. They thought they were going to have Wonky on con, and it has just been downhill since then, Mini. But now, a little bit of an uphill.
Yeah, it's nice to see, of course. I think we expected bigger things from this weekend. The storyline that we were sort of teeing up is like, no more Sharkantini. Now the sky's the limit. And unfortunately, the sky was quite low for these guys over the course of the weekend. Just hasn't quite been their time. Hutty, after yesterday, posted on socials, he just said, count me out. So he wasn't feeling confident after yesterday, but it's actually nice to see that confidence maybe being instilled in them. I'm interested to see actually where it puts them on the leaderboard. Of course, you know, their goal, of course, would be to qualify for the Global Championships. Maybe they need another big game like this in the very last one to actually make that happen. But they've given themselves the hope, which is the most important thing. They've given themselves something to latch onto here in this last game, because without that game, things were looking very dire indeed for them this weekend.
There's the FNCS Global's last chance qualifier that's coming up on August 14th. So for any duos who have counted themselves out, they don't have to count themselves out of Globals yet, but we'll be talking about who looks likely to make it to Belgium after the break.
I got here. I'm popping in med bit. Wait, short. Got 6 builds. No, max up. Wait, if you're med, wait. 100. 100. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Milk can help you grow. Milk can't prevent your ride from blasting into space.
I always say that game 11 is really the moment that the competition shifts. We confirm a champion or we see the unexpected happen, and we basically saw both potentially in game 11, Takata. The question now is, can anything go wrong for Sky and Scroll?
It's tough to say. It is very tough to say. If we look at the standings, look, Minnie, I know you like put numbers together. What would Sharkantini actually have to do to overthrow Sky and Scroll here?
Well, all they need is for Sky and Scroll to go down off spawn and get 0 points, right?
Okay.
And then get a 30 elim win.
That's
Which hasn't happened.
Wait, what's
in
the
a year,
record again?
ever.
In
No,
like
it's
ever?
never. No, never.
What's the
Never
elim
happened at all.
record in a grand finals? Do you know that?
16, I think, something like that.
16. So they have to get
it's never
double-
happened. It's never happened.
Double the record of the current grand finals eliminations of an FNCS.
Yep.
And Sky and Scroll have to go down off spawn. Okay.
Yeah. All it is.
Well, we did see 2 duos landing near Sky and Scroll off spawn this time. Obviously, it's Sky and Scroll, so they came out of it unscathed to Carter. But things could happen in game 12. You never know.
Hey, anything could happen. We broke it down. It is mathematically possible. It's not going to be easy, but it is possible. But huge round of applause to Sky and Scroll. They have been playing out of their minds. They won Major 1. Tragic end to the summit, but they're back in business once again here in Major 2. You can see how well they're playing. Even in those final moments, the difference I see is Major 1, they were playing flawlessly, right? But also there was a lot of solo clutch points. And as I'm speaking, we're looking at a solo clutch, but throughout this second major, I feel like the chemistry has been higher. We've seen them do more kind of duo-oriented plays in these final moments, and it's what I love to see from Sky and Scroll as they've evolved.
And Sharkantini will be kicking themselves because that standoff of Frosted Flats, that was their decision to rotate over Mini Miner. If they hadn't ended up in that stalemate, they could have sorted themselves out, got ready for the mid-game, and instead we saw it end in disaster for them.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Sky and Scroll. Every single time they've been asked questions of this grand finals, and of course last one as well, they have had the answers for it. Sky and Scroll, every single time there's a team landed on them, they've had that answer. Every single time there's been a team fighting them here in the mid game, they have had the answer. And the ultimate question was asked of them, of course, in that last game. Can you fight off the team in that second place, the team that's chasing you when the pressure is really on? They had the answer again. It just seems like these guys cannot be stopped right now. And, you know, to be honest, realistically, yeah, 30 lim win and Sky and Scroll not to get any points. That is a pipe dream, but you never know, I suppose.
Well, they lost Summer after taking an unwise fight off spawn that they didn't necessarily have to take. And so they've learned from it. They've moved forward. I can't wait to see what happens for them in game 12. And I'm also really excited for Kami and Hari. They have confirmed their spot at the Global Championships now after disappointment in Düsseldorf. And it's really exciting to see Hari in particular. He is an endgame insurance policy for this duo, always picking up huge eliminations when he makes it to the final moments, Mini Miner.
Yeah, and sort of at the beginning of this this sort of season, I suppose, you have to say, is that Hari and Kami, the big question was, how are they going to do this season? They really need to qualify for those global championships because I've always said Kami is that sort of LAN go. He's that player that just shows up on LAN, and here in the grand finals as well, showing up. You mentioned it right there. Hari, what a performance from him this weekend. Really, really excited to see not just what Kami can do on that global championship stage yet again, but also what he can do alongside Hari, because he has really showed up this weekend, Takata, and just showed up beyond probably a lot of people's expectations.
Yeah, at the start of the day, we kind of were breaking down how well both of these players are playing their roles. Hari eliminating everything, getting a bunch of damage, playing that fragger role perfectly, and Kami has been putting him in the position to do so.
It's been a perfect marriage. Let's take a look at the leaderboard because we need to take a look at page 2, gentlemen, because we're looking at the cutoff point for global championships. Given that 8 of the 9 already qualified duos are in the top 17, it means that that is the cutoff. So right now we know that Vico and Malabuka already, we're going to see them in Belgium. So you're looking at Acer, Turtle and above. We've got to give props to Yanis and Rax. They didn't have a performance to write home about yesterday, but today they're looking really secure and they're really building up to have a fantastic game 12, Takata.
Yeah, it's what you love to see, kind of being a bit more comfortable higher up in that qualifying range, but they're not comfortable enough where the nerves aren't going to be there going into game 12. Every single duo on that second page that we looked at has a chance to qualify, but also a chance, Mini, to drop out.
Yeah, something that I spoke about going into this game about that sort of second page was because it was so wide open now, and of course, you know, there's a lot more of a disparity between sort of 11th and 20th, is that the teams that want to qualify for the Global Championship, which of course a lot of those teams, they need to make the most of these last two games, and Rax and Yanis definitely did that. I mean, it wasn't the best game ever for them, it wasn't an absolutely perfect game for them, but an 8th place with 7 eliminations really puts them in contention right now. A team that weren't on that standings, though, a team that weren't in that second page and are not on the screen right now, it is Mr. Savage. And of course, truly, they had a pretty poor performance there, just one spot out of the placement points. So the big question for me right now is, can they clutch it up in the last moment? It seems to be always Mr. Savage doing it. Can they end the weekend how they started?
There's so many big names right outside of the cutoff. We talked about the fight for first. It's not very probable, but for all the duos that have a shot at qualifying to the Global Championship, this is their last chance to make it happen. Just some of the names outside of the range right now: Cringe Volko, Mr. Savage Truly, Izzy Nosif, Nevs Nathan. There's just too many titans that have everything on the line going into this last match.
Well, here's the thing, guys. You can prove yourself to be the best duo in Europe today after Game 12, but you can't prove yourself to be the best duo in the world unless you make it to the FNCS Global Championships. After this game, we'll know who is in contention. So let's get into Game 12.
Look, as far as Savage and Truly are concerned, Levin, maybe you want to chalk it up to it just being for the content, but we are going to need to see some big performances here in Game 12. And they're not the only ones trying to seek out that global qualification spot. They don't want to have to try and fare their way through that last chance qualifier. It is just going to be absolutely ballistic on that side of the pond. So obviously here, Game 12, it's time to get the job done. So let's see it.
So much talent currently sits outside of our Global's qualification threshold. And that means just one thing. This game is about to get wicked. We are about to see so many different duos doing everything in their power. Before we get to Globals though, let's take one last look at our major champions here. Sky and Scroll will land at Frosted. And I think, quite humorously, as the analyst sort of mentioned, for them to lose the FNCS from now, they would have to go down with 0 points, which uncontested or spawn isn't an issue. And Shark and TV would have to drop a 30 elim win, which has never been done. And I don't think anyone's even come anywhere close to putting up them type of numbers. So Sky and Scroll will do their victory lap, but Mr. Savage and Truly will just be trying to stay in the race. Marius and Fredoxy have not had the best FNCS final, but they will look to spoil the party here for Mr. Savage. Can he 1v2? No! Mr. Savage, the dream, the script. What a terrible ending to the story. They will go down at the hands of Fredoxy, who will add salt to the wound with an emote on top.
He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly where he was going. He knew exactly what he was spoiling. Fredoxy enveloping the villain role here on day 2, but game is game. And for Fredoxy and Medius, that is going to be where they try to kick things off here. Prizing still on the line, after all. Shark and Teeny, on the other hand, though, they have admitted defeat. Sky and Scroll have already taken to social media. It is just way too big of an ask to expect for anybody to actually be able to get 30 eliminations and a win to overtake them. And for Shark and Teeny right now, they've got to be a lot more worried about whether or not they can even defend their second place position, because if Aldous and Larix are able to roll them over here, that might just be enough for somebody else on the leaderboard to potentially overtake. That gap not quite solid enough just yet, but Larix Valdez, they might have had the jump start. But even with the jump scare, Shark and Teeny are all too familiarized with evil Fortnite, and they will not be shaken this early on in Game 12. Managed to win it. You can see where exactly things might have gone south entirely. The ledge went a little bit further there.
That will be Maldis and Lyrics locking in the 49th place this weekend. Shark and Teeny. I mean, look, we have to talk and give them their props. They tried their hardest and they made things fun towards the end. But when you're playing against one of the best duos in Fortnite history, it's always gonna be a tough task.
Imagine they get close, though. Just start to make them a little bit worried. You know, something like 20 eliminations. You might start to raise an eyebrow or two. You see Shark and TD on the move like that.
Didn't realize I was commentating with Boop here, mate. They are not dropping 20 elims, bro. Like, this is not happening. Like...
This is EU after all, so actually, true facts. But Asa, Turtle, really trying to bring things back. And for these two, trying to make sure that they stay inside of that threshold for getting their qualification spot to Belgium. Nebs and Nathan, on the other hand, they're trying to work their way in, and they are going to need a very sound performance here in Game 12 if they want to have any chance making their way in to around that top 17 area.
Yeah, this is a very key game. Nebs and Nathan, if you aren't familiar, they are probably the duo in EU outside of some of the biggest names, some of the already global qualified teams who were having the best season, right? When you looked at their performances in the divisional cups, when you looked at how they played in the heats, they looked like a team who was a shoo-in to qualify for globals this season. And I know they had their fair share of ups and downs, obviously, at times contested throughout the day, but the reality is for them to not qualify for globals would be a massive disappointment and not what many people would have predicted at all. One thing that becomes very scary with Teeny and Shark, which we learned from the heats, is when Teeny and Shark don't feel like they have anything to play for, they become the scariest team in the lobby because they will just run at everyone and they often win most of the fights. And so if you are a team who is trying to qualify for the global championships or trying to hold on to your spot to qualify, this is the worst team you can face. Jaw and Tidy will go down, and they came into this game in 8th, and I think they should be able to hold on. But boy, is that not how they wanted this game to go?
Not in the slightest, because even if you've got that spot locked in for globals, off the consistency metrics, there is still a decent amount of prize pooling up for grabs, and when you've essentially just got to sit it out, wait and see whether or not you actually get overtaken on the leaderboard, it can be a tough pill to swallow, but right there with you, Lev, Shark and Teeny, just every bit of the way, looking like Crash Out Nation currently, and you would think that they're like desperate for some kind of whopping performance to take them across the line here, but no, it's just them absolutely free-forming it the whole way through. They don't care. They're just making whatever plays they feel like they can pull off.
Yeah, and they're not the only ones crashing out. Look at the player count. Look at the amount of teams that are already out of this one. This game does not resemble what we have seen previously so far this weekend. I would love to get a leaderboard update, because I wouldn't be surprised if a couple more of our teams who were in global qualification spots have gone down without us noticing, just with how many players have been falling. I mean, there must be a couple of them who are already out of it and just holding on. Scott, oh, he's playing a bit of keepy uppies. GG, well played. Look. Clicks, fans, rise. Clicks, fans, rise. Hey, look, supporting their boy, I guess. Look, one thing we have to say on not Shark and Teeny, on Sky and Scroll before we really start to lock into the global spots is, this is one of the best duos ever. To back-to-back EU majors, nobody's done it since 2021. It hasn't felt doable for a long time. We've seen some all-time great performances, Taco. But I think what really solidifies Sky and Scroll to me, no mythics, no medallions, no gimmicks, no broken POIs, just pure Fortnite excellence at a level that we have not seen. Two of the most complete players we have ever seen touch this game. They can do it all. I think the only comparison I've really seen people make, Taco, as far as the all-time greats and people in their primes when it comes to just this level of perfect Fortnite, is Cammy and Seti from way back in the day, which is a fair comparison. But even then, you'd have to make the argument that these guys can fight in a way that maybe Cammy and Seti, even at their best, couldn't. And that really is what makes these guys such a scary prospect going into globals. And when you look at the all-time great teams.
And that's the bigger end of things that I think is impossible to avoid. If you are one of the competitors that is already confirmed for globals, every single other region, you are going to be VODing every step of Sky and Scroll's performance here in Grand Finals. Even with slight shifts in the meta, Sky and Scroll have still managed to overcome, and they deserve every single bit of praise that is headed their way. You can never say enough on these two, especially after what they've accomplished this weekend, and given the fact that they had so many other teams trying to ruin it in the process, and yet they still manage to hold their composure and achieve a level of Fortnite that, like you said, Lev, just hasn't been seen in a very, very long time. But now, looking back out at all of these other teams that can't afford to lose their nerve either in this final moment, Nebs and Nathan, bit calmer, but that player count just thinning out so rapidly. Shark and Teeny also on the move. Roxy and Marius not too far off in the distance either from where Nebs and Nathan are currently at. And if I had to take a guess, Lev, wouldn't be surprised to see Fred and Marius potentially playing spoiler. Some of these other duos hovering at bubble territory for that global qualification spot. And Pink and Haris, it's so hard not to lose your composure.
Yeah, these guys, this is probably one of the biggest games of Pink's career. When you look at the heights he used to reach playing alongside Anas back in the day, it's been a while since we've really seen him shining. And what better opportunity than the Global Championships to show people, to prove to people, he's not done, he's not finished. They have to make this game count. They can't afford any slip-ups, any mistakes.
What also just makes that so tough, too, for a duo like Pink and Haris is that even Pink himself at one point has said, I've never invested more of myself. I've never given my all to something and not had it come back with some metric of success. And yet, his recent tourneys in Fortnite have all just been devastating defeats, one after the next. So this could be a very big changing point for Pink's career, because to overcome that type of failure time and time again and then still manage to pull yourself into a position where you can say, yes, I've still got it. It's got to be one of the best feelings to accomplish as a player, and he's right there on the cusp of doing so in this competition.
Absolutely. Not the only one, though, that is close to doing it. Izzy and Nosif on our screens were another team who were going into this game outside and so need a big performance, but they're already a great example of a duo that has had such a fantastic comeback so far in day 2, but needs to do just a bit more. Teeny and Shark on our screens now, going up against Sky and Scroll. A little too late, lads. But boy, if this would have been... I mean, yeah, maybe, but at what cost, man? What would we really be achieving here? Nothing that would change the standings rapidly at the top.
They've already set their eyes on physics yet again, though. But Sky Scroll also following suit. Teeny actually going to meet his end. It's Bimbo and Radeon. They're going to be the first that they actually get caught out with. But Shark, he's just looking to try, have an opportunity to look to maybe play for a revive. But Bimbo and Radeon, this might have actually been a very big lifeline for these two. Shark has a lot to offer. Unless they can't bring him down. Shark already gonna get one in. Bimbo Radeon might just be the next, and Shark turning it in his favor. Just like that. Despite losing Teeny, you can never just run at Shark, and that is a perfect example of why he is one of the most feared fraggers on this region.
Let's run this one
Absolutely
back.
Insane.
Oh my goodness, that first pump was disgusting. And then he's just toying, playing with his food here. And a Mongrel classic to close it out. Shark showcasing, highlighting why he is so rated. But as Shark rotates in here as a solo, I do want to take the time, Taco, to big up Teeny. For all the praise Shark gets as being the best in EU, the best fragger, the talent that's gonna compete with Peter Bot and be the greatest. Teeny in this Grands has been phenomenal. He has kept up and actually just led the duo all throughout the weekend. In the big moments when they've needed bigger limbs, Teeny has gotten the job done. When they've needed clutches, Teeny has gotten the job done. And he's given the space in the room for your young Shark to find his footing in this Grands. And I think it just speaks to his level, his greatness. Over in NA, I think we've seen Curve being so impressive as a controller playing, pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible since the likes of Miro have dominated the game years ago. But Teeny here on EU continuing to showcase that he is the benchmark for top controller Fortnite. And I think he deserves his praise for that alongside the greatness of Shark.
Couldn't agree with you more. Excited to see Teeny has now forcefully passed the torch here to Shark. Let's see just how far Shark can actually take it as a solo. Be an exciting adventure, to say the least. Does have a really solid material count. This is the type of loadout you would want to see Shark rocking if he is in a solo-based position. But for Asa and Turtle, time is running out here for these two. Asa can't afford to hold his walls any longer. The lobby focus just too detrimental. And you have to remember, that is a team that was right at placement 17 heading into this final lobby. So their spot at Belgium might just be up for grabs. It all depends on how the rest of this lobby plays out, but just forced to sit and watch. It's a tough place to be in.
Yeah, as this lobby starts to close out, our focus switches away and onto those teams who need the qualification for the Global Championships. For Asa and Turtle to go down, and that is heartbreaking. They have really tried their hardest to get themselves back into contention today. They've had some excellent games. I mean, an 8th place, a 2nd place, and 2-6. We've seen them on height trying to fight for it, but it's just not been enough to secure them solidly. And there will be plenty of regret, I'm sure, as they replay what they could have done differently this weekend. And it's up to the rest of the teams in this lobby who are sitting on that bubble, in that range, to make sure they don't leave the weekend feeling the same, Taco.
Probably the only thing missing right now from Sky and Scroll's performance, though, Lev, is just 6 out of 12. That's got to be the next challenge that they would look to approach potentially at some point in their careers. But as of right now, all of these teams that are just stumbling their way through some of these first moving zones here. Cammy, Hari, overhead right now. Volko, Cringe, not going to be able to escape the sights of Zynox. Is now front side, getting a little bit more scrappy. No, O'Reilly won't be able to face up to it. Just too many players standing in his path. They'll be eliminated. Pix, Firen, also looking to try and cement themselves with their global certification. They'll have to be very cautious as they make their way across here now. Giannis and Rax have done a great job too, just playing for recoveries. Inox actually cleared out Chapped and Flixie. A little bit of a power position. So they wait for an opportunity to strike, but with Giannis and Rex now making their move towards front side. Every player for himself, essentially, but Rex and Giannis doing a great job at staying next to each other.
No Sif and Izzy. We talked about them needing a big game. Same with Nathan and Nebs. These teams are setting up to do it. But we've seen teams get to this point in the game and fall over, trip up. That can't be Nebs and Nathan's story if they want to be back on that global stage. And we need to see the Nebs and Nathan we have seen all throughout this season in divisional cups and all.
No time to buckle here. Nebs and Nathan have just got to be concise with every single move they make. They're gonna take their time, really try and see whether or not they can find an opportune moment inside of the mid ground. They want to stay one layer above ultimate low. They know that's very likely where Sky and Scroll are going to be operating, but Sky and Scroll met with problems of their own here. Still, it doesn't matter in comparison to what Rax is trying to accomplish. Playing the medkit, Sky and Scroll out of the lobby, though, now means that frontside low up for grabs, and other teams looking to take advantage of it immediately. Pablo Chino also looking to cut players short. It's Pixie and Swizzy making things very complicated right now for Focus and Tons, but it's Pixie and Swizzy that pay the ultimate price here. Izzy and Nosip, though, from deep inside of the storm, playing through that backside of zone. It's getting so chaotic on the front end of things, but Nebs, Nathan, they're gonna be the ones that are trying to take matters into their own hands. They've got an opportunity here, Levin, and as small as it might be, they are going to have to seize every bit of it because they don't have any other options if they want to make it to globals.
Yeah, these guys have the benefit of some of those teams in the qualification spots have gone down and they don't have a chance to fend off their point leads. And so Nebs and Nathan, if they can start to add a couple more limbs to the tally and continue to control low ground, they might just do enough to book their tickets to Antwerp.
It's just so scary, though, especially when you can hear all these audio cues around you. Nebs, Nathan, though, managing to carve their way through frontside still. They see Kenty right in front of them. They're going to punish Chino the moment that he tries to run for the body loop. Pablo incredibly injured also, but Nebs hasn't had a chance to look back and get those shots in just yet. Nathan needs some help, but Nebs won't be able to fall back in time. He is going to find another onto Cheatin, though. Every single elimination bringing them one step closer to potentially securing that qualification spot. But Nebs, he's not finished. He sees Fruzy. He knows the body, but he doesn't get the siphon. It's going to be the Storm. Takes care of that player instead. Will be utilizing that Chug Jug just to buy himself a little bit more time. The placement is going to be the topic of focus right now, as Izzy also doing everything in his power just to try and stay alive. One placement further, but Winter and Hellfire have held strong here on the low ground. They haven't had the chance, though, to turn back around against Swizzy and Pixie, who are now looking for the immediate collapse.
Swizzy and Pixie will wrap this grand up and take game number 12. But it's all about that leaderboard. We know our champions. We know who's been victorious, but who will be going to globals, Frankie?
We have to wait to find out, but right now, a huge congratulations to Sky and Skrull. They won Major 1 in glory. They had devastation, underperforming and placing 4th at the summit, and that could drive any duo apart. But this duo are built to bounce back, and not only have they done that, they have done that in dominant fashion, Mini Miner.
Unbelievably dominant throughout this weekend. Unbelievably dominant throughout Major 1. So close to claiming that Summit title, but they have done it. Back-to-back major titles for the best duo in EU. Over on NA, we've seen the Peterbot era, but ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sky and Scroll era.
Shivers. I'm getting nervous just thinking about the global championship. Not only did they win Major 1, now they've won Major 2, and we talked about the devastating end to Summit. Let me remind you, they were first place going into the last match. That's 250K for first, and they went down not to second, not to third, to fourth. dropped down from 250 to 70K, but now they've shown there were doubters. You switch your drop spot, people have been broad reviewing your game, your play style, your strategies. It did not matter. They proved every single person wrong and now have won the back-to-back majors. I am so excited to see their performance at the Global Championship because they are looking like they're at a whole other level.
Honestly, throughout this weekend, every single question that was asked of them, they've been landing on. They've had doubters. They've been in mid-game fights. They've had Storm Surge to deal with. Every single question that was asked of them, they have dealt with. They are by far the best team on Europe right now. And as you mentioned to Carter, those global championships, they're coming for them.
I mean, it was one mistake. It was one mistake at Summit that cost them the victory, and they have learned from it. They have grown from it, and everyone in the lobby at the Global Championships needs to be ready for Sky and Scroll. So let's see who will be joining them in Antwerp because the leaderboard is ready. We're going to be looking at the top 17. So you can see there, Hari and Cami, never any doubt. From that day one performance, they set out their stall early. Cringe and Twi, huge congratulations to them. Day two wasn't quite as comfortable for them, mini minor, but they showed that they deserve to make it to their next FNCS LAN.
Yeah, definitely. They're a team to look out for now. They're a team that have cemented themselves as one of the best in the region. Their day one performance will not be forgotten one bit. Unbelievable performance from the UK lads right there. Personally, so happy to see them in those standings as well. And a big congratulations as well, of course, to iDrop and Gonzo. Gonzo making his first LAN here at the Global Championships. Really happy for them too.
Yeah.
It's so exciting. I mean, iDrop and Gonzo, what a performance. I can't wait to see Gonzo on LAN for the first time, to Carter.
It's exciting. Just on the first page too, there was 6 out of the 9 already qualified teams, but iDrop, it is going to be very interesting to see how they evolve. It was a bit of a mix-up throughout this weekend, starting off so strong, ending day one in quite literally the opposite way they started. But the good news, Mini, is they didn't let it get to them. Mental stayed strong. They refreshed after a good night's sleep. They planned out what they were going to do going into day two, and they did exactly enough to qualify themselves to the Global Championship.
Yeah, and it was interesting, of course, iDrop played with Marius at the last LAN. I think a lot of people, when these guys split, would have said, yeah, Marius is now going to go on to do great things. He's now dropped iDrop, but it was actually iDrop that came out the better of that split, and I'm really excited to see what he can do. Of course, as well as Velo and Zynox. Excited to see what Zynox can do at his first LAN as well. Of course, Velo has that experience at the Summit. These guys have proved us, or shown to us throughout this weekend, what it can mean to make your first major finals. What an incredible showing from those guys who will, of course, be now making it into the Global Championships as well. Super excited for my Welsh friend as well, Zynox.
Yeah, let's see page 2 now. Vico and Malibuca have dropped lower. It won't be the top 17, so let's take a look. So they have dropped lower. So I believe now we're looking at the top 16, which means that Pix and FireN are the cutoff, and Nathan and Nebs have done it, to Carter.
Just barely, and it was a very big match from Nathan and Nebs. Just making it to the end game would not have been enough to qualify. They got a very good amount of eliminations. It was actually 6 elims, 3rd place. What a clutch up to qualify themselves to the Global Championship.
And what a clutch up from Nebs there at the end. That's what did it, that solo clutch towards the end of that last game. Huge moments from him. Another player that we sort of spoken about so much as not having that big grand performance in terms of actual recent results. And although this one in the grand scheme of things, yeah, 15th is not their best, I think it's definitely something to celebrate because, of course, they've qualified through. We can see all of the teams that are qualified through here from Major 2. Lots of big names on the screen and some newer names as well, Frankie, which is great to see.
Yeah, it's really great to see Rax joining Yanis. Rax's first LAN, I think he could do incredibly well. This is a player that we're going to be talking about for the next few seasons at least. He's just getting started, and I can't think of a better in-game leader to be teamed up with than Yanis. Yanis has seen it all before. He's got that experience, and now he's also putting up numbers again. It's going to be so exciting to see those guys, but it's also going to be incredibly exciting to see the return of Shark and Teeny. They'd already qualified for the Global Championship Championships. And tonight we saw them on fire. Yes, it wasn't flawless. Yes, there are things they're going to be working on, but the hunger never changes to Carter. It's always there. We even saw it in that last game. The eliminations, they were going, pressing W, trying to take every name they could and go down in a blaze of glory.
I think they were listening to the broadcast because when Minnie said, okay, what do they need to win? They said 30 elimination victory royale. And they said, okay, you know what, let's make it happen. Remember, the record for the most eliminations in a grand finals was 16. And then they, I think, got 12 eliminations before the end game even started. Unfortunately, they did go down. I was actually concerned for Rax and Yanis too, one of the people who got pushed by them, but they've just shown how powerful they can be and how strong of contenders they are for that #1 spot, Mini. So we'll see if they can make something happen at Globals.
You know what? Just massive appreciation, massive credit to this duo as well, because yes, they didn't take home the title. Yes, they didn't quite live up to the expectations that people may have had of them, particularly on day one. But what they did give us was so much entertainment. The only realistic team that pushed Sky and Scroll all the way down to that penultimate game of the weekend. They could have just run away with it, realistically, Sky and Scroll, if Shark and Teeny weren't there. And a note on Shark as well, you know, realistically, they were the favorites coming into the weekend. This is sort of realistically the first time these guys have been in that position of favorites. And even when they didn't have a good day one, I suppose until that very last game of day one, they still show that they can come back and are worthy of being in that top spot in the region and worthy of being considered favorites for an FNCS major title. Realistically for these guys, I'm sure it's only a matter of time before they take home one.
So here's where we are, Europe. We have 18 duos qualified for the FNCS Global Championship in September. We have 3 more spots. Who in Europe is going to be taking them? You'll have to wait until August 14th to find out. That's when the FNCS Global Championship qualifier takes place. And just to confirm, even if you've already qualified for Belgium, you can still enter. So the cinema is going to be getting a sequel. We will see Shark and Teeny return. We will see Sky and Scroll try and take yet another victory to dominate the lobby again as they have this weekend. And we'll see names like Truly and Savage return. Will we see Europe Sweethearts on LAN? You'll have to wait until then to find out. Thank you so much to Levin and Taco for the commentary, to Carter and Mini Miner for your incredible work on the desk, and obviously production. Thanks to our duos. We can't wait to see who will take the last spots, and for you guys for watching. Stick around, because in about 2.5 hours, we'll see North America and who'll be taking that Axe of Champions. But for now, let's sound that horn. Good night.